Matthews, one of the best in the league. McDavid under 50% for the regular season. But he won 12 out of 14 of their opener, and he won that one and got a shot off. Centering pass, McDavid scores! Connor McDavid wins it for Canada! And Jordan Binnington has done it again inside the TD Garden.
Man, it was sad. It was sad last night. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Fireball Hot Take Friday. Ian, it was a tough one last night for Team USA.
Good game, but yeah, just a little short.
It was a tough one. So I have a lot of different branches of this tree to get into as far as last night's game is concerned. First of all, let me say this. I had to watch the game on my phone. If you are involved in country music or radio at all, you know that this is the country radio seminar week or whatever. And so all the country radio programmers from across the world come to Nashville. And there was an event. My girlfriend she's an executive with one of the record labels in town. And there was an event last night, and we went to the event last night, and I had on a Team USA sweater, and I was watching the game on my phone like the entire time. Everybody kept coming up to me at the event saying, what's going on in the game? Has overtime started yet? What's going on? I watched the whole thing on my phone, which thank God I have this job, because most of you guys out there that have regular jobs probably can't do that and get away with it. But as many of you also know, my girlfriend is the Canadian CMA Industry Person of the Year because she is Canadian. And so there were a lot of Canadian people last night that were, yeah! And I got to say, what a freaking game last night, and hats off to Canada. Like, a great win for Canada last night, a great night for the sport, for the NHL, and I kind of look at this as all kind of separate and like different branches of the tree as far as like, wow, hats off to Canada. There's three things that I look at about when I think of last night's game, which will be a game that we remember for a long, long time. The first is what it means for the sport and what it means for the NHL and what it means for people in America caring about hockey and hopefully the NHL. The second part is Canada and how you have got to tip your cap to Canada. I knew it was not going to be easy like Saturday night's game. I was aware of what happened in 2010 where the U.S. won in the round robin, and then the U.S. kind of blew it in the final, and I was scared to death that was what was going to happen last night, and it did. And when it comes to Canada, again, hats off to McDavid, hats off to Jordan Binnington. Holy crap, what a performance by him. And then there's the Americans. And I think the Americans kind of choked. I think the moment was too big for the Americans. I think it was one of these moments where Team USA is the Boston Red Sox before they overcame that 3-0 deficit against the Yankees. If you're over the age of 30, I guess, Ian, like how old do you have to be to appreciate what the Red Sox and Yankees used to be?
Yeah, that sounds about right. 30, 35.
God, that is so old. I mean, 2004 was 21 years ago. Like, I mean, wow. But so the way it used to be, if you are a part of our younger audience, is the Red Sox never beat the Yankees. Never when it mattered. Never, ever, ever, ever. Including blowing it in 2003 when they had the game on a silver platter and they gave it to the Yankees and Aaron Boone hit a home run, and it was the curse of the Bambino because the Red Sox traded the Yankees Babe Ruth the way the Titans traded the Eagles A.J. Brown, and the Yankee players ran out to the Babe Ruth plaque and dumped champagne on it after they won because of the curse of the Bambino. And then finally one day, Boston won. And right now, that's us in Canada. And I don't care about 1996, but I'm talking about like the modern day when it matters, good on good, which they don't play often enough. And I think they're going to change that now. We're afraid to beat Canada. So I can go down all three parts of this. I can start with the game itself with Canada, where they did earn it, in my opinion. Jordan Binnington was fabulous. He stole the game. I think McDonough going right to Binnington after the game was over, after McDavid puts the puck in the net and is talking about the performance that Jordan Binnington had, I think was totally worth it. Yeah, he is dangerous in big games, by the way. Binnington, that is. And if you can't, look, if you can't score 3 goals when you're facing a team that has Connor McDavid and Cale Makar and Nathan McKinnon and Sidney Crosby, like when you're playing that team, you're going to lose if you don't score at least 3 or 4 goals. The USA should have won the game in overtime last night. But as we always talk about with hockey, and this is why when it comes to expectations of Western Conference Final or Stanley Cup, or I'm always like the expectation, the max expectation you can have for hockey is the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, because the margins are so thin in this game when it's good on good. And last night, the margins were that thin. So when it comes again to the game, I think this was a great night for the NHL, and I thought it was a great night for hockey. Personally, I was sad because, again, I was rooting for Team USA. And I'm an American. I root for Team USA. And I was very excited at the idea that if we won, that I could go up to all of my Canadian friends and my Canadian family and just say, USA, USA. But I kind of knew that wasn't going to happen. That's why I didn't talk too much trash after we won on Saturday night, because I've seen this so many times. And last night, when it comes to Team USA, they just didn't get it done when they had the opportunities. I mean, Austin Matthews has the puck on his stick in the slot in front of Jordan Binnington 3 times in overtime and cannot get it past him. Then Team USA takes the weakest icing, a total panic icing. And thus they're stuck out on the ice with, I think, quite frankly, probably their worst defensive unit, led by Adam Fox, who, Ian, I was aware of Adam Fox, unlike our guy Sanderson last night.
Mm-hmm.
I was aware of Adam Fox's existence before this tournament. And the rule is, if I don't know who you are, you stink, because I know all the good players. Holy crap, he sucks.
You think so?
Oh, he sucks. That Adam Fox, he stinks. And Jack Hughes was worthless in that tournament, and he was on the ice there at the end. And out come the big boys for a D-zone draw, and you lose the draw, and they end up getting a shot on net, and then all of a sudden, everything gets kind of discombobulated. Matthews just leaves Crosby wide open. Leaves McDavid wide open right there in the slot, and I mean, he's the greatest player in the world. And it's just like Crosby's goal in Vancouver in the Olympics in 2010. And so the game itself, Canada just has that feel where when push comes to shove and it really matters, they are so evenly matched. They could play 100 times, and if you told me that it was 50-50, I would not be shocked. But just those little moments where push came to shove, Team USA wilted. Again, like the little brother in a sports rivalry. I mean, that's what I feel when it comes to Team USA, which is we'll get another shot. And I believe it'll be next year at the Olympics, and I think it'll be good on good. And I think it will be, once again, now look, I don't know what's going to happen with Russia as far as the Olympics are concerned. I don't know what's going to happen. You know, there's going to be more of these other teams that are in there, and they do have good players. But it's probably going to be Canada and the United States in the gold medal game next year at the Olympics. And if I had to bet on the game, I'd bet the exact same way of what happened last night. The exact same thing happened in 2010. Like, that's what I would put all my money on, is there is this big brother, little brother thing with us in Canada. And maybe it's because Canada has just a little bit more skill at the top of their lineup, which they do. But last night, I felt like Canada knew they were going to win the entire time, and I felt like we were waiting for the impending doom. And the only hope that I think many of us had last night of winning the game was that Jordan Binnington was going to let a softie in. And not only did he not do that, he was unbelievable last night and stole the game. So hats off to Canada. Hats off to Binnington, McDavid, the NHL, hockey, everyone. ESPN, I'm sure, is going to end up with a great TV rating, even though it would be much higher if they had put the game on ABC, but they had to show Scamanda last night. And I'm glad that we've got a real rivalry, like real juice. And I think this rivalry is so popular amongst the players and the fans that they're going to find a way to keep playing this. That this is going to be like Michigan and Ohio State. That it's going to end up being an every year thing where America will play Canada good on good. And it was funny because last night, like, they had medals around their necks, but it wasn't like a gold medal at the Olympics. They had a trophy, but it wasn't like the Stanley Cup. And this is what I love about sports. They didn't care about the trophy. They didn't care about the medals. I didn't care about the trophy. I didn't care about the medals. They just cared about winning so they could say, we won. And that is what sports is all about. So I can't wait to do it next year in the Olympics. And hopefully one of these days, Team USA will beat Canada in a meaningful game when it matters. And we can only hold our breaths. Jim Harbaugh had that Ohio State cloud over his head. He finally beat them. The Red Sox had that Babe Ruth cloud over their head. They finally beat them. So it is possible, but boy, I thought last night was a freaking choke job by the United States of America. Not going to put it on Hellebuck. Thought he was good last night, but disappointing as a U.S. fan. Everything else was wonderful. The game was wonderful. The intensity was wonderful. No space on the ice. They finished their checks. They were deep in the other end. Like, God, John Hines must have just freaking loved everything about the style of play in the Four Nations face-off. But I did hate the result because I wanted to win. 615-737-1025. That's how we're starting. Again, I think it was a USA choke job. 615-737-1025. And there's one guy in particular that I've got to circle. And again, when it comes to choking, and this is the important part of what the Four Nations does for the NHL in marketing its players and maybe now its biggest choker. We'll do it next. Stillman & Company, 105 The Game.
The pass for Reinhardt didn't click. Bouncing puck. Matthews again. Again kicked out. The fall stopped by Binnington.
The U.S. has utilized that high flip several times today. The Canadian defense has had trouble fielding it. There's Matthews, 2 grade A golden opportunities in overtime that Binnington has stopped. One the blocker, one the right pad, and then Brady Tkachuk trying to jam this in on the short side. Binnington stops that too. The U.S. has had all of the great chances.
Off the draw, Matthews again! Snatched by Binnington!
A lot of people in Canada might want to thank Jordan Binnington because they've done nothing but kick him in the shins here for about 3 weeks.
So Ray Ferraro decided, I'm going to really make this about how great Jordan Binnington is and not about the fact that Austin Matthews, Team USA's captain, had the puck in front of the net, 3 high-danger scoring opportunities. I can see Adam Vingan pulling it up now. The high-danger scoring opportunities, according to, what's that website Adam likes so much, Sport Logic?
I think that sounds right, yeah.
According to Sport Logic, the high-danger opportunities, and he missed them all. Again, Jordan Binnington did do his thing. But it's Austin Matthews. And I think it kind of hit me last night. And again, this might be why we are where we are and why they are where they are. The 2 stars of the 2 teams, like the 2 real stars. They have Connor McDavid. We have Austin Matthews. McDavid was taken first in 2015. Matthews first in 2016. McDavid is their guy. At this point in time, when you think Hockey Canada, it's Connor McDavid. Who is the MVP of the tournament? Connor McDavid. I believe he was the
McKinnon.
It was McKinnon? What did they give to McDavid right after it was over? Like the first star of the game?
First star player of the game. Yeah.
I saw that, and I thought that was ridiculous, by the way. I thought it should have been Binnington. That should have been the player of the game for Canada.
Yeah,
but
you could argue that, but you know how they do with OT game winners.
I know, it's like the quarterback being Super Bowl MVP. It's just like they give it to you. Now, McDavid is not Canada's captain because, the legacy of Crosby. So I think Crosby will probably play next year at the Olympics. And then after that, it will be McDavid as the captain. But he's the guy. Matthews is the American captain. Austin Matthews scored 69 goals last year. But after watching overtime last night, I'm kind of starting to come to the realization that Austin Matthews is the Lamar Jackson of hockey. Incredible player, incredible stats in the regular season, can't do it when it matters. I go back to last year when the Maple Leafs lost in 7 games, and boy, Mitch Marner got a whole bunch of crap from the media in Toronto, and I'm not there every day, and I don't cover the Leafs, and I'm not going to pretend to, but man, it was just Marner slander. And I remember it because we talked at length about, hey, could the Predators try to go get Mitch Marner? But guess what? Game on the line last night. Who came through? Marner. Who didn't? Matthews. Austin Matthews had 1 goal in the playoffs last year. And yes, I know he was hurt. But again, that plays a factor into it. He was absolutely not a factor in this tournament for the United States. Jay Gensel was, the Tkachuk brothers were. I mean, Matt Boldy was more important to Team USA than Austin Matthews. And again, 3 high-danger opportunities in overtime before McDavid got his 1 opportunity. And while, again, we still want to give full marks to Jordan Binnington for making some awesome saves, at some point, if you're an elite player, aren't you supposed to put that past the goalie no matter who the goalie is? I don't look at Connor Hellebuck for not making that save on McDavid's, wide open look from the slot and say, well, Hellebuck should have seen that one. He should have stopped it. I mean, freaking McDavid almost clanged it in off the goalpost. And I'm not a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, but if the Predators don't start winning soon, my son probably will be. But I am familiar with the problem when it comes to Toronto. And it's that they never win in the playoffs. Now, this predates Austin Matthews, but again, he's the leader of that team. And the biggest gripe that the people in Toronto have about their team with their core four is, God, we have all these great players. We go for it at the deadline every year. We never have draft picks because we are always adding. And we can never win in the playoffs. And they'll say, well, John Tavares is too old or Mitch Marner is too soft. But maybe the issue is Matthews. Again, the leader. And so in Toronto, he's their guy, which is not my problem. But now it is my problem because in international hockey, he's our guy. And so I'm just wondering, like, is he one of these guys that just, he cannot win the big one? Now, what does happen is oftentimes guys get criticized for being the guy who can't win the big one, and then they do. Like Chad Withrow's told me he thinks Lamar's going to win a Super Bowl. Every dog's going to have his day. Peyton Manning couldn't win the big one, and then finally he overcame a 21-point deficit in the AFC title game against Brady and won his first Super Bowl. Alex Rodriguez couldn't win the big one. And then finally, the Yankees won the World Series in 2009. At some point, maybe this year, Rick Barnes will get to the Final Four. Because it does feel like at some point, every dog has their day. But it's like all of this Toronto choking and the city of Toronto and the entire country of Canada and then everybody else kind of pointing and laughing. That was something that I was more of an innocent bystander in. I don't care about the Toronto Maple Leafs. But now that their best player is my team's best player in international play, and I'm telling you, after the success of this tournament, we are not going away from good-on-good international play. It's not going to happen. The players won't let it happen. Bettman won't let it happen. The TV networks won't let it happen. Austin Matthews is our guy. The same way Connor McDavid is going to be a pain in our butts every time these two teams play. And I think he's one of those guys. Can't win the big one. That's where I sit when it comes to Matthews after watching last night. The Lamar Jackson of hockey. Lamar Jackson every year, it looks like, is the best player in the NFL. And if not the best player, the second best player or the third best player. But if you take Mahomes' stats and you take Lamar's stats, Lamar outstats Mahomes. Lamar beats Josh Allen in the regular season. And then Lamar gets into the playoffs, and if he's not playing Ryan Tannehill or Russell Wilson or somebody like that, he gets beat. And we can always make every excuse in the book for Lamar Jackson, which oftentimes they do. And this year I felt bad for Lamar because he put the ball, right into Mark Andrews' chest. But I think that Austin Matthews, our guy, who is going to be our guy for like the next 15 years, might be the Lamar Jackson of hockey. Like if you want to say that Crosby and Ovechkin were kind of the Manning and Brady, and now McDavid, can't say he's the Mahomes because he doesn't win all the time, but he's the best. And Austin Matthews is Lamar Jackson. Again, maybe he's why the Maple Leafs never win anything in the playoffs. 69 goals last year. 1 goal in the playoffs. 615-737-1025. Let's get to your phones. Excuse me. Let's get to your phone. 615-737-1025. And I will say this. Probably shouldn't have played a factor in the game last night. Pretty sure it did play a factor in the game last night. We'll get to that as well. Again, that phone number is 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. Nashville's best deal of the week is from Bavarian Beer House located at Opry Mills Mall. Enjoy traditional German beer, brats, giant pretzels, and more. And their expansive beer hall and garden. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals now to get half off a $50 gift card while supplies last. Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Boy, I thought I was going to be pouring out some ice cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey last night to celebrate Team USA. And unfortunately, I was unable to do so. But I'm going to have to get back on the horse as we have the return of the actual league itself and everything else. March is here, tournament time, St. Patrick's Day, whatever. Be sure to celebrate with ice cold Fireball Whiskey. Nothing goes down as smooth and tastes as great as Fireball Whiskey. Ignite the night. Please do responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey.
You have two close games, and with this one you lose in overtime. What is sort of the takeaway with this team knowing like you're close, maybe as close as USA's ever been to where it wants to be, but there's still a little bit of distance that you have to overcome?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I'd say it's pretty even playing field in my opinion. I could have gone either way.
That was Austin Matthews saying it could have gone either way, and it would have gone your way if you had put the puck in the net with one of the three high-danger opportunities presented to him in overtime. And again, full marks to Jordan Binnington, who played his tush off last night and should have been whatever the award was for the 4 days, the MVP of the game. It should have been, again, traditionally it's the first star of the game. It should have been Jordan Binnington. But you got to put one of those in the back of the net. If you want to be one of the world's best players and you want to be the captain and the best player of the best team, you have to put one of those in the back of the net. And Connor McDavid got one opportunity and he cashed. And that was the difference. Let's go to your phones, which are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Let's go to, is it Zinni? Zinni is going to kick us off on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. What's up, Zinni?
Yeah, so one thing I really have to disagree with is you saying that the whole USA team was a choke show. Well, I'm a newborn hockey fan. I started watching from last Saturday, and I had some money on the game, so I was paying more attention to the game this time than usual. But, man, I think it was all Austin Matthews. I think he's the one that choked it. I mean, if you watch, like, from the beginning of the game, Canada scored, and then we scored right back, and then we scored again with Brady Tkachuk and gave us a lead. And then our goalie was playing phenomenal. Granted, their goalie was too. But like I said, Austin Matthews, man, I had money on him. He killed me last night, but he choked the whole game. Like you said, 3 shots in overtime that he missed. And before overtime, he had multiple shots, and he completely crapped the bed on those as well. But one thing I really wanted to say about this whole tournament is, like I said, newborn fan to the whole hockey game. But man, I have been excited and I've been waiting for that game. Regardless if we've won or lost, it was an amazing game. I thought it felt like 2 heavyweights, like we're going to go at it. 2 of the greatest heavyweights were going to go at it. And honestly, I'm so excited for the world, for the Olympics, the Winter Olympics. I'm extremely excited for the Winter Olympics. But like you said, if you're comparing Austin Matthews to Lamar, then I mean that's all you have to. I mean that's all you have to look at it right there. I mean, it was all
Zinni,
on him.
I don't
that
think
choked,
he's the only one
bed.
last night. Zinni, thank you for the call. I don't think he's the only one who choked last night. I mean, I thought Adam Fox, he's in my doghouse. Jack Hughes, he's in my doghouse. That might really be it. As far as like the Jared Stillman doghouse, the coach is in the doghouse. And the reason the coach is in the doghouse, Ian, you want to know why I'm putting the coach in the doghouse?
Sullivan?
Yes.
Why?
Well, I because I watch the Predators. That means that I watch the Central Division teams play more than the other teams. Makes sense. The Predators are in the Central Division. And I know what Kyle Connor is capable of. And the one thing Kyle Connor can do, Ian, is what?
Score.
He can score. And he scratched him last night to play Chris Kreider 6 minutes. Why? Like a coach's decision scratch to take Kyle Connor out. And with all those opportunities on Binnington, boy, would it have been nice to have Kyle Connor in the game last night. So the coach is in the doghouse too. And I thought Sanderson, got to give him full marks. Thought he played his tush off last night. The Tkachuk brothers are in the doghouse with me for a little bit of a different reason. I didn't think that they didn't show up last night, but I do think that all the talking they did after the first Canada game, I think that ignited a fire under Team Canada. Brad Marchand, Ian, if you could, Brad Marchand said it after the game last night, that the Tkachuk brothers talking all the talk afterward, after the first game, and all the other stuff, like that lit a fire under their ass. I did not like it. And I was afraid that that was going to be a problem going into last night, and I think it was. But, again, the guys that are really in the doghouse for me, Matthews, Fox, Hughes, Sullivan. That's who's in my doghouse. One texter says, Tyler says, Jared, this is the worst take you have ever had. Austin Matthews is an elite player, and he played great last night. The texter says, played great. Explain to me how he played so poorly. First of all, I said he choked. That is not the same as he was god-awful all last night up and down the ice. That is not the same. And I didn't say that. But he choked. That would be like saying, and we see this all the time in all the other sports. Again, we're using Lamar Jackson as the example here. But he's not the first. It's happened. You know, the thing about Derek Jeter, and I remember when the nerds started to get their foot in the door in baseball, and they started saying, you know, clutch is not a skill. There's no such thing as clutch in baseball. You don't understand. I'm like, look, man, when Jeter comes up with runners at second and third and one out, I'm nervous. And last night, Austin Matthews came up to bat with an opportunity to win the game, and he struck out. That's what happened. I'm trying to find like the Four Nations stat. Ian, I don't think Matthews scored a goal the entire tournament.
I don't think he did, no.
So I was trying to find these Four Nations stats online just in the break, and I was just kind of like looking through some other stuff, and I saw the 2 assists that Matthews had last night, and all I could think about was that one day. If you're an old school Stillman and Company listener, the old Jared and the GM program, during the 2017 Predators Cup run, Victor Arvidsson was averaging like 2 assists a night, but was not even close to sniffing a goal. And the old man just went crazy about how Victor Arvidsson needed to score. And the boo-hoo Preds crowd just got so defensive about it that for an Ask the GM, which was a 30-minute segment where we would just load up the phones and people would talk to Floyd, I would mentally check out during Ask the GM, and I'd just be like, Ray is up next. Ray, you're on with Floyd. And they'd be like, Floyd, what do you think Cam Newton's next step is? And so we had this segment. It was very popular. But this Ask the GM turned into like Preds fans yelling at Floyd about Victor Arvidsson. And I was like half paying attention one day, and he tried to cut the phone off because he was so mad. And his thing was like, assists are not goals. So congratulations to Austin Matthews on getting 2 assists last night, but they're not goals. And did you notice Connor McDavid, their guy, scored a goal? Not assist. Goal. Apparently Matthews had 3 assists in 3 games and no goals. If you're the Team USA's captain and you're a 70-goal scorer, you need to score.
I wonder if they'd make one of the Kachuk brothers captain for the Olympics.
What, are you going to strip it from Matthews?
Yeah.
I don't think you can do that. Like, I think that you have to hope that Matthews plays better. That's like saying, like, maybe the Ravens will turn it over to the backup quarterback to see if he can.
No, it's not quite the same thing. Not quite the same. Captains, switch captains in a couple of years from the Olympics.
No.
I'm just saying. I wouldn't be completely surprised if Matthew or Brady Kachuk were captain of the Olympic team.
Can I say who I'd give the captaincy to?
Sure.
Like if they outlawed current general managers being general managers of international teams, which they should do, because I thought that was an issue that, again, if it wasn't so much just about USA and we hate Canada, but if this were like football, where we're like talking about the matchups and things like that, there would be a lot of talk about the fact that Don Sweeney was the general manager of Canada, who's also the general manager of the Bruins. And so Team USA did not share Charlie McAvoy's injury news with the Bruins because Don Sweeney was the general manager of the opposing team. And the Bruins are all been out of shape about that. So I think they should do away with it. And I don't think an NHL GM should be allowed to be an international GM. So if they did away with it and I got to be the general manager of Team USA, which, boy, that would be a squad. But if I got to be the general manager of Team USA, the guy I would give the captaincy to is Jacob Slavin. I freaking love that guy. Like, I love Jacob Slavin. That guy just, every time that Erik Karlsson wins the Norris Trophy, a part of me dies inside because Erik Karlsson is a defenseman who plays no defense. And this Slavin, I mean, I remember in the Carolina playoff series a couple years ago when he got hurt and came back in the lineup and played like pretty much every minute on the penalty kill. I'm like, God, this guy is so tough. Slavin is awesome. He is awesome. And so I would make him captain. Like if it were up to me, because I think that's a freaking leader right there. But you cannot take the captaincy away from Matthews. We just have to accept it that he's our guy, and we have to hope the way Peyton Manning got over it at some point, the way hopefully Lamar Jackson will get over it at some point, that he'll get over this choke-itis that he has in these big games. Now, as far as what he does on his own time with the Maple Leafs, don't care. 615-737-1025 on our program. 615-737-1025. We are back to your phones. Plus, something that has got to be said about last night's game, and it will be said, Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
Well, I just hope Canada's proud, because every player in that room is proud to be a Canadian. And yeah, did we need a win? Not only like our team, but Canada needed a win. And the players bared that on their shoulders, and they took it seriously. And this one was different. This wasn't a win for themselves. This was a win for 40 plus million people. And the guys knew it, and they delivered.
That was John Cooper, the Canadian coach. We got to take a little aside here because it is Fireball Hot Take Friday. And last night, I was dialed in on the anthems. I said, do not boo the anthem. Whatever you do, Boston, do not boo it, because I don't want to give them added firepower. There was a little bit of a boo last night during the anthem, but that actually ended up not being the biggest story as far as the anthem was concerned. But the Canadian national anthem last night, "O Canada," which I think is a great anthem. You know, when I go to the Predators games and they play Ottawa, Calgary, Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, I think I hit them all, Winnipeg. When I go to the Predators and they are playing a Canadian team and they play the Canadian anthem, I am excited to sing "O Canada." It is a great song. They put out last night the single worst anthem singer, at least Canadian anthem singer, I have ever heard. She wasn't exactly Macy Gray or Roseanne Barr level bad, but again, Roseanne Barr, like, she's not a musician. And apparently, my sources, and I think my sources on this, as far as Canadian musicians are concerned, is pretty good. My sources told me that this is like a legitimate Canadian singer that they put out there. And I just want to know if I am the only person that heard "O Canada" last night. Again, a song I really like. I think it is a good anthem. And my ears were bleeding. It was so bad last night. The only good news is, maybe after hearing that, my son, when he gets to pick who he wants to root for, Team USA or Canada, will pick Team USA. Now, if we don't start winning both Team USA and the Predators, then I do worry about my son and what he's going to choose to root for down the road. But I just had to get that out there that the anthem was terrible. Ian apparently did not listen to the anthem last night, so he did not have to hear it.
I was in the car.
It's too bad. It's too bad, because I would love to commiserate with somebody about just how terrible that Canadian anthem was last night. But back to your phones we are. Joel says, let's not forget the U.S. was 1-1 in this tournament against Canada. Went to overtime in the championship game with the best player in the world winning for Canada. The Austin Matthews lamenting seems excessive, but par for the course with Stillman and company. All right, let me say this. Do you remember 2010 in the Vancouver Olympics? And I'm sure that they showed last night on the broadcast, I can't remember specifically, but I'm sure they showed the Crosby goal, the golden goal that won the Olympics for Canada in 2010. We beat them in the round robin that year too. But it doesn't matter what you do in the regular season. The only thing that matters in the regular season of any sport, so like the pre-tournament tournament, is that you're good enough to qualify for the tournament. That's why nobody really cares about these conference basketball tournaments, because Joe Lunardi's on television telling us, yeah, it doesn't matter if you win the conference tournament or get knocked out in the first round. So what do we care? Move on. So no, I do not give Team USA a moral victory for beating Canada on Saturday night. If anything, it goes to show you that when push really comes to shove, when it is really big boy hockey, Canada always finds the upper hand. And I don't know if it's because Canada just has a little bit more skill than you, so when they get the puck on their stick, in the slot, right on the tape, that, again, McDavid unleashes just a beautiful shot. Or if you choked. That I don't know. Like, do they have just a little bit more high-end talent? Probably. But I do not think that the Austin Matthews is supposed to be at the same level of any other player in the world. Like, he's supposed to be at the same level that Leon Draisaitl is, that Connor McDavid is, that the Kachucks are, that the best of the best. He scored 69 goals last year. He should be able to put one past Jordan Binnington, who is a league average goaltender at best. He is a league average goaltender that, well, we'll get to in a second, but one texter says, Connor should have played over Kreider. Fox shouldn't have been on the team. Funny how Team USA didn't get a single power play last night. Canada got their worthless trophy, but the cup will remain in the USA and the 32-year drought will continue. So I don't know about you guys. I don't take any solace out of the fact that, like, this year the Vegas Golden Knights are going to win the cup. That doesn't make me feel better. It's not like I feel better as an American that Vegas wins the cup, that Dallas wins the cup. That, boy, you know what I really won't feel good about, Ian?
What's that?
If Minnesota wins the cup.
Oh, that would be glorious.
Oh, my God. That would be, oh, God. I'd rather have Vrabel go 19-0 and win the Super Bowl. I guess it would be now 20-0. I would rather have Vrabel go 20-0, win the Super Bowl, take the trophy from Terry Bradshaw, and say, up yours, Jared Stillman, than Minnesota win the cup.
You do owe Jake Sanderson an apology now.
I just said I had never heard of him before.
Yeah, and then the group text between you and me and Adam Vingan, here you are talking smack about.
I was crapping on him.
Yeah, they gave up the first goal. You're talking smack. Then he scores, and you immediately he's immediately your favorite player. So
Well,
this is where Chris Sanders,
Slavin is clearly my favorite player in this team.
This is where Chris Sanders comes up with the nickname Pancake with a little bit of a flip flop. You flip flopped on Jake Sanderson way too quickly.
Do you know who I'm starting to like? So I like these Minnesota guys like Boldy and Faber and them, but the guy I'm starting to like, and he comes off as just a total a-hole. I'm starting to like JT Miller.
Okay.
I think he's got, when I hear like a Barry Trotz talk about like sandpaper in their game, and I think he's got a lot of that. Now, apparently he keeps fighting with his teammates. Like, I don't know what happened in Vancouver between him and Elias Pettersson, but I know that like Alex Doherty went into the locker room a couple weeks ago and like asked JT Miller, and JT Miller's like, I got nothing to say to that. And I was like, ooh, what happened? But I didn't care enough to investigate it. And JT Miller keeps getting traded. But I liked it. I mean, he's tough. He's a tough player. I do like this JT Miller. All right, more of your hockey phones, 615-737-1025. Plus, credit where credit is due. I've been talking about Team USA and Matthews and how I feel like we choked it away, specifically him. There is one person in particular that, man, I don't know if I'd like him if he was on my team, but man, I don't want to play against him in a big game. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, Fireball Hot Take Friday, 102.5 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home, and they can do the exact same for you. Did you know that Hiller has been in business since 1990, and they are family-owned and operated? And Jimmy Hiller, and that's a good man right there. Jimmy Hiller was recently named amongst the most admired CEOs because of the way he truly cares for his team and his clients. Hiller takes care of the customer on every job, every single time. And I know this because I use Hiller at my home. I redid an entire room of my home, and I could not have done it without Hiller. I mean, they absolutely do a fabulous job. And again, 100% satisfaction of happy you'll be, or the service is free, because if a customer is not pleased with the work performed, they will make it right. Learn more at happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds of Falls of Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. I have never claimed to be the most cultured person in life. And I'm sure there are some people that are kind of laughing about this, and they're kind of, if you know me, you know that, like, I just, there are certain things that I'm not a wine drinker, for instance. I am a Fireball Hot Take Fridayer, but I am not a wine drinker. I'm not one of these people that, oh, man, this just wonderful Chateau de Le Mans from 2013. Just, exquisite. I'll have to get a bottle and put it in my cellar downstairs. Like, that's not me. I'm not big into going to nice restaurants, even though I do sometimes go. I'm not like a big foodie, like, oh, new restaurant in town, I have to go out and try it. That's not me. And I'm not a big appreciator of art. Now, again, art is kind of a relative term because it could mean a lot of different things, but I'm talking about Renoir and Degas and whomever. Monet, Jackson Pollock, etc. Like, I don't care. To me, it's just splotches of paint. I say that because the finer things in life that I do appreciate, one of which is, even when it's not for my team, but exemplary play in the most meaningful moments of the most meaningful competition in sports. And that's why I want to talk about Jordan Binnington for a second. Go back 6 years to the St. Louis Blues' worst to first transformation of 2019, where the Blues woke up on New Year's Day as the worst team in the league. I mean, I remember Thanksgiving 2018. I believe it was the Wednesday game before Thanksgiving. And Terry Crisp was on the show at the desk, and the Blues were awful, and the Predators had just won the President's Trophy and had won the Western Conference the year before and were flying high, and they had just fired Mike Yeo, and they had hired Craig Berube. And I remember having Crispy on the show being like, Crispy, this team sucks, talking about the St. Louis Blues. And all of a sudden, after January 1st, the St. Louis Blues caught fire because they called up some minor league goalie who, Ian, I don't believe Jordan Binnington was like a hot prospect or a high draft pick or anything like that when he got called up.
I don't think so.
He was just some Scarbini goalie that they called up. And the guy did not lose a game. Like, his GAA was under 2. And then I watched him be the star of the playoffs. Now, Ryan O'Reilly won the Conn Smythe that year, but I watched him star in the playoffs, specifically Game 7 of that Cup final against the Bruins, and I thought, this guy never gives up a goal. Like, this guy is going to be a problem. And I think that's what most people thought about Jordan Binnington. Turns out, like, he's just kind of an average goalie, which is not bad. And again, teams with horrible goaltenders would love to have a Jordan Binnington. But like right now, he's got a sub-9 save percentage for the St. Louis Blues. If this were baseball, the way that he ascended into the sport, we would have thought he was juicing in 2019. Again, he's a career average goalie, which is good enough to win with in the league. But he's not Connor Hellebuck. He's not Vasilevsky. He's never been a Vezina finalist. He's fine. He's Ryan Tannehill. That's what he is. League average. Not bad. Not great. League average. But then the big game comes. And when the big game comes, this dude takes it to another level. Imagine having a regular season goalie that plays like Ryan Tannehill, and then come playoff time turns into Joe Montana. And I've just decided after watching Jordan Binnington last night, that's what he is. He's got that big game gene in him. And that's a gene that I don't think your goalie, UC Saros, has. I don't even think UC Saros knows where. The way Binnington played last night, I'm not sure UC Saros has ever played in like a meaningful type game. Could be wrong, but last night, I mean, this guy made saves, and I'm watching the game on my phone, and I'm sitting there like looking at it being like, how did he make that save? And I am a big fan of the Binningtons as a whole. And so I root for Jordan Binnington, support Jordan Binnington, all of that. But I knew the chatter. Like, I knew the chatter going into the tournament was Canada's great, but we got that Jordan Binnington in net, and I just don't know. And then there was all the talk after they lost the first game to Team USA, in which Jordan Binnington was awful. And it was like, oh, that's where Canada blew it. Canada blew it when they decided not to take Logan Thompson to the Four Nations. They should be going with Aiden Hill. They shouldn't be playing with Jordan Binnington. And to John Cooper's credit, he was like, nope, we're going to stick with Jordan Binnington. And Jordan Binnington last night transformed again. He made a comment about it being the building, TD Garden, where he stole Game 7 of the Cup final with the St. Louis Blues. Maybe it's the building. I don't know. But Jordan Binnington's save percentage is higher in his career in the playoffs than it is in the regular season. His GAA is down, again, in his career in the playoffs than it is in the regular season. Why? Because when the game matters the most, this guy kicks it up a notch. And those are the players I want on my team. Guys with big stones that when the game really, really matters, that's who you want. Taking the last jump shot at the end of a game, that's who you want on the mound. That's who you want taking the snap. That's who you want in net. If Jordan Binnington was the Predators goalie in 2018 instead of Pekka, who I thought had a terrible series against Vancouver, the Predators are probably Cup champions. Because this guy elevates his game in the playoffs unlike anything I've seen. And last night, I mean, those point-blank saves that he made in the third period and in overtime for a guy who was much maligned, I really felt bad. Because again, I really like Jordan Binnington. I really like the Binningtons. My kid's got one signed hockey autographed anything, it's Jordan Binnington. And I knew that if Canada lost, the entire country was going to blame him for it. And they were going to say he should have never been on the team, and they should have had Logan Thompson in there, and he shouldn't have been playing, and he's not that good, and that's exactly what they were going to say. And instead, he turned in that freaking performance. And that is the guy that I want on my team. I talked about, again, how when analytics nerds talk to you about the game, they will not say that there is a clutch gene. So Michael Jordan, to them, doesn't have that clutch gene in him. Derek Jeter doesn't have that clutch gene in him. Madison Bumgarner, who pitched the Giants to 3 World Series, despite being an above-average starting pitcher, again, a good starting pitcher, but he's not like a Hall of Famer outside of his October career. They say, no, it's just luck of the draw. It's just, I don't even know what they say. They say clutch is not a stat, is not a thing. It's not an attribute. Bullcrap. I have a lot of appreciation for the dudes that when the lights are the brightest, play the best. And I've just decided after watching what Jordan Binnington did last night, that's what he is. So even though he's a sub-9 guy right now, even though the St. Louis Blues stink right now, like, sign me up for Jordan Binnington. Because I can put a team around him, and I know if we get to the playoffs, Jordan Bennington's going to give me a GAA of like 2.1 and a 910 save percentage. And I'll take my chances with that. One texter says, what Binnington did last night is what the midday show thinks Soros does nightly. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. That 615-737-1025. Corey Curtis, News 2. will join us next on the program here on Stillman and Company. And I do wonder if he's heard not my criticisms of News 2, but just the fact that the game should have been on News 2. And we'll talk to Corey next. And we'll give something away too. Why not? Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game. Stillman and Company, let's give something away. I'm in a good mood. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025, and you will win a pair of tickets to the Belmont men's basketball team as they take on Indiana State at the Curb Event Center tomorrow. Tip-off is at 5 o'clock. Good luck to Casey and the Belmont Bruins. Corey Curtis joins us now on a Fireball Hot Take Friday from News 2. Corey, I have to tell you my disappointment, not with News 2, but with the fact that News 2 did not have the game last night, and the game was on ESPN. And I'm trying to figure out why the Brainiacs at ABC and ESPN wanted to put Saturday night's game on ABC, but not last night's game on ABC. And I think that when the ratings come out, Vingan and I are texting, I'm going to say 7.4 million is going to end up being the number for hockey. I bet it would be 11 million if the game had been on ABC. So what do we know about why last night's game was on ESPN, but also your thoughts on the Four Nations face-off as a whole?
Well, we were asking that very same question at our station, Jared. It's kind of like with Monday Night Football,
Sure.
And I understand they want certain things on ESPN to drive subscribership, but there are also things where you want as big of an audience as you can possibly get. I mean, wasn't the College National Championship on ESPN this year?
Yes, but the College National Championship, like when they went to the playoff, has to be on ESPN so that they can go to the cable companies and say, hey, here's why you have to pay $6 a month for ESPN. I'm not exactly sure that when they went to Comcast and said, here's why you have to pay for ESPN, that the Four Nations final was included in that list.
That's a good point. And I don't, this will sound bad. I don't know what our programming is in prime time on Thursday night. I'm working and I was watching.
And Extreme Makeover Home Edition was on last night.
Okay. So it wasn't like one of our dominant shows. It wasn't, in the past. Cause I know a long time ago when we used to air, Titans on 2, the Jeff Fisher show, from 7 to 8 on Mondays, we had to move it because they started showing Dancing with the Stars in that time slot, and we couldn't cover up Dancing with the Stars. So there are certain shows they don't want covered up. But again, I'm with you. I mean, I guess they didn't know when they created the Four Nations that it was going to be USA Canada in the finals, but you would think you could adjust on the fly a little bit. So I would say from a personal standpoint, I can't speak for News 2. From a personal standpoint, it was disappointing. And I know I talked to other people at the station who were like, man, we'd love to have this on our station because it would bring eyeballs to the station, obviously, because I mean, it was an event everybody was talking about. And when you ask me about Four Nations, I think that's the overwhelming sentiment I have, is it got everybody talking about hockey. Okay. It got, non-hockey fans talking about hockey. And it wasn't just USA Canada, although that was a big part of it. All the games were good. You get all these guys playing for their country, and it's just different. And, there was pride on the line. And we've seen U.S. amateur hockey, the junior teams performing very well for a while now. So it's not surprising, to see us be competitive on that stage. And I look forward to the Olympics next year. And the Olympics should be more thrilled with the Four Nations than anybody, because it's really going to set the stage for the Olympic hockey tournament.
So I asked this question. Do you think that what we saw over the last 5 days, do you think that has some staying power as far as the NHL and hockey's popularity is concerned? Do you think that there is something tangible that the sport game, because I love hockey, I know you like hockey, but also I think we can agree it is very clearly fourth in America in terms of the big sports, and it's kind of niche. Local fans love their local teams, but it struggles to translate sometimes. Do you think that this past week did something for the sport of hockey?
Well, I do think it got eyeballs to the sport that wouldn't have been there. Do I think it's going to be a massive growth for the sport? Probably not. But I do think it was a refresher for some people, and maybe it got a few people to say, hey, maybe I'll because again, I don't think it's going to make somebody watch the Bruins versus the Islanders. All right. Mm-hmm. But I think it will make people look forward to the next time we have the Olympics and Olympic hockey. So I think it will do more for international hockey than necessarily that it will do for the National Hockey League. And I might be wrong on that, but that's my initial take.
Corey, I think Team USA choked last night. I think Team USA they've got little brother syndrome in sports. I know it very well because In rivalries, when there's a big brother and a little brother, it always seems like the big brother will always find a way. I brought up the Yankees and the Red Sox, for forever. It was like, just wait until the Red Sox blow it. I went to Louisville. Kentucky's our bigger brother. And there's a lot of times where it's like, inevitably, Lamar Jackson will fumble at the wrong time in the wrong spot against Kentucky, and it costs us the game. And that's how I feel about Team USA in Canada. I think they're very evenly matched. Austin Matthews has 3 opportunities, high danger scoring shots, does not put one in the back of the net, and McDavid gets his one look and puts it in. I think we choked last night. I think that, I don't know if it was that we were too overexcited about the possibility of beating Canada. I don't know if Canada's just got a little bit more high-end skill than we do. I don't know if it was just a razor-thin margin and it was the bounce of the puck, but I think we choked. Do you?
No, because like you said, it was a razor-thin margin, and it just came down to Binnington outplaying Hellebuck. I mean, because the United States dominated most of overtime. I mean, we had, like you said, we had chances to score. I know they hit at least one pipe on that. And Connor McDavid's the best hockey player in the world.
But is it really Hellebuck's fault when, a panicked icing leaves, Jack Hughes and that freaking worthless Adam Fox out there on the ice, and then Austin Matthews does nothing to try to get the puck away from McDavid? Like, I thought we blew that whole series that led to the goal.
I don't think I'm not blaming Hellebuck. I'm saying Binnington outplayed him. Binnington was outstanding. Okay. If Binnington just has an okay game or a good game, the United States wins 4-2, but Binnington was outstanding. And he kept giving Canada opportunities to win the game. And as you stated, there was enough talent on both sides of the ice to where, one of those guys was going to break through. And, there were other times in the game where I thought, oh, this is where we lose it. But I do agree with you. It's the whole Ric Flair thing. To be the man, you've got to beat the man. And Canada's the man. I mean, they just are. They've dominated this sport for years. You look at their lineup, I mean, and the players they put out there, they're outstanding. Now, we've got outstanding players now too, but we're kind of new to this level. We've flashed from time to time, but I think U.S. hockey and junior hockey, in the U.S. has grown to the point now where we're producing enough quality players to where we can start to be competitive on a national scale, a lot more consistently. And to me, that's very exciting. And we'll see when they can break through. And, look, what if Matthew Tkachuk can play the whole game last night? I mean, does that change the outcome? Maybe.
If Gary Bettman were to come to you and say, Corey Curtis, what do we do with the 4 nations going forward? What do you say?
That's something I was thinking about is if you do it every year, is it special, or do you need to do it every few years, or do you need to change up the nations? Because there are other nations. What other nations could you put in there? You could put in, Russia. Who else could field the team?
Czech Republic, Sweden,
Switzerland. Yeah, Sweden.
Yeah,
well, Sweden was in there.
Sweden was in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So Czech Republic, Switzerland. I don't know. Maybe you could have a block. Maybe you could have a block of nations, that play together. I don't know. So that would be interesting. But, I just don't. Would playing every year be bad? Would it take away from the magic of it, or does it need to be like the World Cup or the Olympics where you play every 4 years? Maybe play every 2. I don't know.
Here's what I would say to that. Here's my theory on it. I hate to say this about the 4 Nations Invitational because it's not just, the United States and Canada, but that's what it really, for us, that's what it really was. It was right. It was the USA, just like the Vancouver Olympics. It was the USA versus Canada. That's why it matters to us.
Finland and Sweden was awfully big to Finland and Sweden.
Sure. But as far as us, we didn't care about the Finland and Sweden games as much as we cared about the 2 Canada games. And I think Team USA and Team Canada need to play every year. I think it needs to be like Michigan, Ohio State. They need to play every year. And what I loved about this tournament was they got medals last night and they had a trophy. And I remember thinking yesterday during the day, are they going to give them medals like it's the Olympics, or is there going to be a trophy? Like, what are they going to?
I thought the same thing. I was
win?
like, man, I said, it's great that there's a cup that goes with this.
I bet you those guys though, this was I don't care about that trophy. I don't care about those medals. I don't think they cared about the trophy or those medals. It was just, they wanted to win. They wanted to beat the United States, and they did not want the U.S. to say, we've got the one thing you guys have over us, we've taken from you. That's what we wanted. It wasn't about a trophy. It wasn't about a parade. It wasn't about the pride of it. And I do think there's a rivalry college feel to it. Again, I keep using Michigan, Ohio State, Duke, Carolina. There was that kind of feel to it, and I think we need that every year. It's not bad that we have Michigan, Ohio State every year, is it?
No, and that has me thinking maybe the best way to handle it is have the four nations every year, have the United States and Canada in it every year, and rotate the other two nations, every year. Every year you can have two new ones or just a different combination of the two other ones. The United States and Canada host every year. It's just a matter of what other two teams play in it.
The next four nations in 2 years, because we'll have the Olympics next year.
Yep.
Nashville, Tennessee. The championship at Bridgestone Arena. Fireball Hot Take Friday. What's your hot take?
I got to thinking, as we trade barbs on Twitter quite often, you were asking me about Derrick Henry getting fired, and did he get fired? And was he offered a contract by the Titans?
I mean,
No, he
I
wasn't.
think Rand made a comment that there were some discussions or something, but like Derek said, he went on Bussing with the Boys the day after Rabel got fired when Rand met with him, and he said, they're going in a different direction, and that's fine. I'll go in a different direction too.
Yeah, well, so that means he got fired. I mean, it may sound absurd, but I mean, look, if 102.5 The Game, when Jared Stillman's contract comes up, doesn't offer him a new contract, he's fired. When Corey Curtis's contract is up at News 2, if I'm not offered a new contract, I'm fired. So, yeah, as crazy as it sounds, he was fired.
Let Rand cook, baby. Corey Curtis, News 2, as always on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Corey, great stuff. We'll talk soon.
All right, thanks.
Coming up next, TD said something yesterday that gets me very, very excited. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 105 The Game. who do you think the Titans quarterback, 1, should be, and 2, who do you think it will be?
I think it should be Shedeur Sanders, but I think, the more and more I look into this, there's a real chance Sam Darnold ends up here. There's a real chance. Make of it what you want. I know, you're over there getting a little excited, but I think there's a chance. And I mean, if you look at it, I understand if they did it, but it's a very risky move if they were. So Shedeur Sanders, Sam Darnold.
Okay. TD yesterday on the program, I asked him, I said, TD, who should it be? Who will it be? TD said Shedeur. And he said, he thinks it's going to be Sam Darnold, and said, again, that quote right there from TD, there's a real chance. And he was right. When he said that, I was very, very excited because I'm like, hold on. TD has not been, on the Sam Darnold train with me. So when I heard TD say that, I was like, wait a minute. Is that like you're putting the tea leaves together? Kind of the way I did, which was after Mike Borgonzi's introductory press conference, I felt like they were going to go get Sam Darnold. I did not think they were going to get Sam Darnold at any point before that, but after his press conference where he talked about solidifying the quarterback position, and he said the same thing again on the midday show, I was like, he's going to go find Alex Smith. And I looked at Darnold's stats and Alex Smith's stats, and they were so incredibly similar. I'm like, they're going to go get Sam Darnold. And from that point on, I've believed it. But that wasn't me hearing that the Titans had interest. That was me just connecting dots. So I did ask TD. I followed up, and I said to TD, I go, TD, you thinking this? You speculating this? Or you hearing it? Again, the speculative hat and the reporting hat. Here's what TD said. Okay, so let me ask a follow-up on the Darnold one here. Because I, as you noticed, I did not speak and did not get excited as you said that, which I was a little surprised by, but I didn't because I'm probably going to cut that and use it again later this week.
Wow.
So I do wonder this. Is that just based off of what you're hearing, feeling, sensing? Where's that coming from?
A combination of sensing and hearing. So there's a good chance.
Okay. He said there's a good chance, and he's hearing. There's a little sensing, but he's hearing. So this is, I think, newsworthy that TD says he is hearing that the Titans have interest in Sam Darnold. Yes! Yes! Oh! Yes! Now, here's what makes me very happy about this. What makes me very happy is this is the right decision. As much as many of you out there are bitching about saying, oh, God, I hate Sam Darnold. Did you see the last 2 games, Jared? He stunk. As much as you say that, I know the quarterback Sam Darnold is. And so did Gentry Estes, saw him do this at the end of the 2022 season for the Carolina Panthers. Nobody seems to want to talk about this, but Baker Mayfield went 1-5 with that Carolina team, and Sam Darnold went 2-4. Had a higher QBR than Aaron Rodgers that year, and Aaron got handed the keys to the Jets' kingdom after the 2022 season. And nobody wants to talk about that, but that did happen. And so do I think Sam Darnold is a great quarterback? No. But he's a competent quarterback, and he's a 27-year-old quarterback. And so that can be something you work with, you build around, you build off of. And so if TD is hearing that, that tells me that the Titans, even though, again, I'm not sure how much I trust Chad Brinker, it does tell me that the Titans with Borgonzi and Brinker, their heads are in the right direction. That is a good thing. The second thing is this. I have decided that if they actually get Sam Darnold, what's going to happen, and this is so predictable, what is going to happen is all of you Sam Darnold haters out there will change your mind. At least 80% of the fan base will be behind the signing of Sam Darnold. Let's say it's just a free agent signing. Let's say the Vikings don't tag him, and let's say it's just a free agent signing, and they go out and they give him $40 million a year, and he's the quarterback, and on you go, 80% of Titan fans will like it. Because that's what happens around here, is you have an opinion, the Titans decide to go the other direction, and then you say, well, you know what? I didn't like it at first, but now I do like it. And I think that this is legit, and I think that's what's going to happen. And if that happens, I will celebrate that first. So when the Titans sign Sam Darnold, of course I will be happy when that moment happens. But what I will be most happy about, what I will be most finger pointing at, will not be the, oh, hallelujah, they got Sam Darnold, everything's going to be great now, because I don't know that. In fact, I'm not predicting that. I think if you get Sam Darnold and you still don't have a right tackle, you will still stink. But I do think if you get Sam Darnold and you make some other smart moves on your football team, you'll have a 9-win football team. Maybe more. And again, I think we could all stand for 9 wins this year, 10 wins this year. I think we could all live with. But the bigger point, I guess, for me, what I would celebrate, because I can't celebrate something that hasn't happened, what I would celebrate is the amount of you out there that are hating it right now, that just keeps, oh, no, we don't want him. Jared, you're the only one that wants Sam Darnold. You're the only one. That when everybody starts to do that 180, that is what I'm going to go, ah! When the distinguished gentleman on the YouTube chat starts talking about Sam Darnold and letting Sam Darnold cook, that's when I'll be, ah! And I think it's the right move. Again, I think that he is your Jared Goff. And I think he is very Jared Goff-ish. Might even be more naturally talented than Jared Goff. Jared Goff was an MVP candidate this year. Sam Darnold was an MVP candidate this year. So I'm just saying, TD is hearing it. That is newsworthy. And it gives me hope that the Titans and Mike Borgonzi finally have their head in the right direction. That maybe Brinker did hire the right guy. Maybe Brinker will get out of the way. And maybe this will actually come to fruition, which I couldn't be more excited about. Because I know that Sam Darnold's a good NFL quarterback. And I knew that before this past year in Minnesota. And I argued that before this past year in Minnesota. And I was proven right. So let's bring a good NFL quarterback to the Titans. 615-737-1025. There is something that I heard from a guy who I think Brian Callahan really respects when it comes to Sam Darnold. And I want to get to that next, and we will. 615-737-1025 and your phone, Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game.
What's the best match for Sam Darnold?
To stay in Minnesota. It's the best match for him. He's played other places. He didn't have the same success, so he shouldn't necessarily feel like chasing the money is the biggest priority. And if you're Minnesota, you don't have too much money allocated at the position, and you know he can play. He did it this year in your system with those players. There's still the unknown of J.J. McCarthy. So I think Sam Darnold returning to Minnesota is the best fit.
Okay, Tim Hasselbeck talking right there about, hey, I think he goes there. He showed he can play. So I couldn't get this cut ready in time because I got a new computer and I guess the input and the output, and I don't know how to change it, and I need to Google it, and I didn't have the time. But Jordan Palmer, who I believe Brian Callahan has a lot of respect for. Jordan Palmer said on the Rich Eisen show, which is a show nobody watches, but the clips are all over the place. He was asked about, well, what do you make of the fact that people think that Sam Darnold's ceiling was the regular season, but then we saw the last two games? And Jordan Palmer, and I'm paraphrasing here, but Jordan Palmer said that he puts blame on Troy Aikman calling the game, saying that when you call the game, you have to get it right. And that the criticisms of Darnold that Aikman threw out there really should have been criticisms of the Vikings. That watching the tape, it was the scheme with which Detroit worked against Minnesota, and the Rams did the same thing, and Minnesota did not adjust the scheme. Now, you may hear that and think, bullcrap, and you might be right. But I do think Brian Callahan has a lot of respect for Jordan Palmer. Remember, the Palmers are former Bengals, and Joe Burrow went off in the off seasons to go work with Jordan Palmer, and he's sending Will Levis out to California to go work with Jordan Palmer. And so you may not listen to what Jordan Palmer has to say, but I think Brian Callahan might. And so if Mike Borgonzi is looking for his Alex Smith, and the knock on Alex Smith was that the Chiefs could win regular season games with him, but they couldn't win in the playoffs with Alex Smith. If Borgonzi's sitting there saying, you know, this is the closest thing I have to Alex Smith, but those last two games, the way a lot of you were like, oh, those last two games for Darnold were awful. I think that there's a chance that Jordan Palmer says to Callahan, hey, it was the Vikings. I think there's a chance that Jordan Palmer's right and that it was the Vikings. But the narrative is Kevin O'Connell's so great, there's no way that that could have been the problem. Just like the narrative around the country is Mike Vrabel is so great that there's no way he could have been the problem here. And I think that could convince football people, even though I already know it's not going to convince any of you. Let's go to your phone, 615-737-1025 here on the program. I promise, Ian, I am not making this text up. In fact, if you want, you can go check the text line and you can see it for yourself. One text says, I want to disagree with all your takes most of the time, yet every time you prove to be right. There is a texter that said that. Joe Rexroad is driving in his car right now, listening to this, while his daughter begs him to turn this show off because she probably doesn't like it. But Joe can't not listen to this show. And I guarantee you that when he hears this, again, a texter saying, I want to disagree with all your takes, but most of the time you're right. He's thinking that I made it up. This one, I mean, I think there's no doubt that I was right all off season on Sam Darnold. When he signed with the Vikings, I said, I believe Sam Darnold is better than Tua, and I will die on that hill. And everybody laughed, and everybody said, Sam Darnold, ha, 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 ha. And all throughout the season, I kept saying every time it's like 8-1, Sam Darnold does it again. And I think there were a lot of people that were like, man, you know, we might have been wrong about this. I don't think this is going down. I'm not sure. I just, and then all of a sudden, he had those two games at the end. They had those two games at the end. And it was like, he sucks. Again, I don't think that totally erases everything they did for the entire year. Certainly doesn't erase what O'Connell did, right? He was still coach of the year. One texter says, I don't think this will work because we are not the Vikings and we are not the Lions. let me say this. You're not the Vikings and you're not the Lions right now. But when Jared Goff got to the Lions were terrible. In 2020, the Lions were so bad that Matthew Stafford went to them and said, I can't do this anymore. Like, I need to go to a decent team. In 2020, the Detroit Lions were 5-11. The next year, they were 3-13-1. Jared Goff was a 3-10-1 quarterback that year. You're 3-14 right now. So you were the Lions. So when you say like, oh, well, we're not the Lions, so we can't do that. You were when they had Jared Goff. And then when they built a good team around Jared Goff was good again. Just like Jared Goff was good with the Rams when they had built a good team around him. One texter says, I can't wait for the Stillman oh no moment when the Vikings tag Sam Darnold and keep him. They are not getting rid of a guy that won them 14 games so they can start a kid who has played 0 snaps. So I talk about this all the time. First of all, Alex Smith won a boatload of games for the Chiefs, and they got rid of him so they could play somebody who had played virtually 0 snaps. So you say things like, well, they don't know about JJ. It's not that they don't know about JJ. They scouted JJ. They had JJ in camp. They have been around JJ all year. They know JJ. You don't know JJ. That's the difference. You do not want JJ McCarthy, or you don't know what they have in JJ McCarthy. They know. But I do have a theory about this whole, like, are they going to dump Sam Darnold thing? I do have a theory about that, and I'll get to that theory next. 615-737-1025, because I really believe that nobody knows what the Vikings are going to do. I don't think Darnold's camp knows what the Vikings are going to do. I'm not even sure the Vikings know what they're going to do when it comes to Darnold and the tag. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. So, just to recap where we stand, TD on the program yesterday, I asked him who he thinks the next Titans quarterback is going to be. He said he thinks it's going to be Sam Darnold. And he said he thinks, quote, there is a real chance that the Titans go after Sam Darnold. Boy, people don't like that. And every time it comes up there, the last 2 games, he was horrible. Or, oh, no, Jared, we can't this, we can't that. And I don't know what's going to happen with the franchise tag in the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know what their long-term plans are for Darnold. I don't know what their short-term plans are. I don't know what they think of JJ. And again, that is proprietary information that I'm the last person they would share that with. Oftentimes when guys say things in the offseason about, oh, we really like this guy, the truth is they probably really don't like him. So keep that in mind. Remember all the reporting? The Colts love Will Levis for them to take the other guy. So I don't know what's going to happen with Darnold in the tag. And I have not been able to disseminate anything through the tea leaves about what the Vikings may or may not do. But I do find this fascinating. Former Titans offensive coordinator, and I should say Minnesota Vikings head coach, Les Steckel has called into the program. First of all, Coach Steckel, long time no talk, but Les, that something has driven you to pick up the phone and call into this program. So, Coach, the floor is yours.
You know, Jared, first of all, when we're in town, we love your show, and I get a kick out of you stirring the pot all the time, but I love it. And when I'm driving to pick up my 2 grandsons at soccer practice and take them to a high school basketball game. And I heard what you were talking about. And my wife gets really upset when we watch games because I run it back and I teach her concepts, coverages, all that kind of thing. And I said, this poor quarterback, he's not getting any help. And it all starts with, Jared, when I coached, we had 6 guys, sometimes 8 guys on the staff. And so when the offensive coordinators sit in front of the offense, everyone but the offensive line coach was in the meeting. The tight ends, the wide receivers, the running backs, and the quarterbacks all had to be on the same page when it came to the passing game. And with that being said, they had to be able to see the coverages just like the quarterback. But today, you have a quarterback coach, you have an assistant quarterback coach, you have a tight end coach, an assistant tight end coach, you have a wide receiver coach, an assistant wide receiver coach, and on and on and on. And the communication is not getting through. Now, I will say this. When I watched the Minnesota game and I saw them blitz, I said to my wife, they have no idea what a sight adjust route is. The receivers have no clue that they're bringing 5 and 6 guys, and poor Sam Darnold's running for his life. And it was so you can't blame the quarterback. I'm a big fan of their quarterback, their coach. He did a great job this year, but they didn't handle the blitz. I don't even know if they know how to handle the blitz because I saw receivers going downfield 14, 15, 17, even 20 yards on routes. How's he going to throw a 20-yard pass when the guy's in his face within a second or two? So what we always did was we ran slants or quick outs or hitches, depending on what the coverage looked like and if they were on or not. And we could get the ball out right now and say, come on, blitz us, but you better make the tackle, because if you don't make the tackle, it's going for a touchdown. And what's really amazing is when I try to share with young coaches, Jared, they kind of fold their arms and go, oh, yeah, we got this. And, we old coaches, we don't know what we're talking about. But I got to tell you, Sam Darnold was running for his life, and it wasn't because of Sam Darnold. It was because no one was running what we called sight adjust rules when there is a blitz. End of speech.
Coach Steckel, I got one question for you, though, on the Sam Darnold front, which is this. I look at him as a quarterback. I want your opinion on this. I look at him as a quarterback that got all the ups and downs that he's had with the Jets and the Panthers and the 49ers and the Vikings, and they've done all the growing up, the seasoning, all of that I think now he's really ready to be an NFL quarterback. Is that a crazy thought?
No, I don't think so, because, there's nothing better than having the experience. And, people don't realize, I can remember, I was with 8 different teams and coaching being a coordinator, coaching quarterbacks most of the time and receivers and so forth, my first statement to the quarterback was they don't pay you enough. Because, you're going to have to read one of 17 different coverages in 2.75 seconds and make an accurate pass. And by the way, there's anywhere from 4 to 6 guys coming after you. And, it's an amazing position. So the more experience you get, the better. It's like that young kid at Washington this year. I mean, for him to come into the league and adjust and quickly do as well as he did is a real credit to him as a person and his character and so forth. Sam, I think, has gotten to be a better quarterback. I don't know much about him, I'll be honest. But I do know that I did see those 2 games. And, of course, we watched the playoff games, thanks to my wife making me do so. And I got to tell you, he had no help. The concepts, the strategies they had did not help him at all. So you can't point the finger at Sam.
Coach Steckel, thank you so much for the insight.
Okay. We appreciate what you guys do. Keep having fun. Thanks.
Man, he is one of the best. Coach Les Steckel. And not only one of the best in terms of, his football knowledge and everything else, but as a guy, Coach Steckel is as high up there as you can get. Ian, do you have that Jordan Palmer cut?
Yes,
because I do want to tie in. Coach Steckel says, I'm watching the game with my wife, and I am saying, they don't know what they're doing. These play calls are terrible. Somebody sent me a story with the Kevin O'Connell quotes from after the playoff game. O'Connell said, I think Sam would be the first one to tell you, could he have played better tonight? I'm sure he would tell you he could have. Could I have coached better? I'm positive I could have. Kevin O'Connell said, here's what Jordan Palmer said on the Rich Eisen show about Sam Darnold in the last 2 games of the year.
Unfortunately, this is a friend. I'm not going to call him out, but this happens, and file this one away as you call games.
Sure.
And I've called games before. You got to get it right. I heard Troy kept saying he's got to get rid of the ball. I watched the tape. He's going from number 1 to number 2 and getting hit. Now, there was definitely, I think, 1 or 2 plays, and one of the games totally took a sack, right? But when that becomes the narrative, and then you go into an off season, you start to fan flames that were like, there's nothing there. You know what I mean? They got whooped up front. He could have played better. The defense gave. I don't know. I thought the Vikings lost. You start splitting that blame up from my perspective. I go, okay, here, and here. You know what I mean? Across the board. So I don't think either of those games were. This guy threw 4 picks, and so I don't know that the narrative changed. I look at the whole thing and I go, okay, statistically speaking, at the end of the year, he played like one of the best 5 quarterbacks in the game. So that's how I look at it. I know I'm drinking Kool-Aid here and I'm biased, but objectively, that's what I look at, the body of work. And, the Lions had a great plan and they just completely whooped them. And then the Rams kind of copied that plan from what I saw going back and watching the tape and crossing the guard's face to loop the 3. Like, it was a lot of the same things that worked 2 weeks in a row. And unfortunately, the timing of it and the narrative around it. But I think, what does everybody think of Sam Darnold? If you ask the media and then you ask the Vikings locker room, I think you're getting very different answers.
Okay. So again, you all just say, nope, those last 2 games, he sucks. And Coach Steckel called in to say, I was watching the games. This is the only offensive coordinator that the Tennessee Titans have ever had call plays in the Super Bowl. And he is sitting there saying, I'm watching the game and I cannot believe what they're doing. And here's Jordan Palmer, again, a guy who Brian Callahan trusts so much that he's told Will Levis, and I think this is more of like a, Will, I'm telling this to you to help you, not so much that he thinks that Jordan Palmer can save Will Levis, but more like, hey, if there's any chance for you, this is what you should do. He's sending Will Levis out to go work with Jordan Palmer, and that's what Jordan Palmer said about, hey, man, I looked at the tape, and I saw that they weren't doing things with the guards, and they were crossing their faces, and they were. But again, I already know. I'm going to look at the text line, and it's going to be, no, he sucks. He sucks. That's what it's going to say. And the good news is, if TD is right, and the Titans are interested in Sam Darnold, if TD is right, that will give me faith that this administration, whether it's the Borgonzi administration or the Brinker administration, it will give me faith that their heads are screwed on better than the Carthon administration, which was Will Levis is our guy. We don't even need to get a real backup in here. And let's go pay for L'Jarius Need's bad knees. And that in and of itself, the fact that the way they're thinking is already better than anything I saw for the last 2 years, taking a guard with the 11th overall pick. Andre Dillard to left there. It gives me hope for the future of the Titans. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phone. Stillman and Company, 105 the game. Who do you think the Titans quarterback, one, should be, and two, Who do you think it will be?
I think it should be Shedeur Sanders, but I think, the more and more I look into this, there's a real chance Sam Darnold ends up here. There's a real chance. Make of it what you want. I know, you're over there getting a little excited, but I think there's a chance. And I mean, if you look at it, I understand if they did it, but it's a very risky move if they were. So Shedeur Sanders, Sam Darnold.
There you go. TD says he's hearing there's a real possibility that the Titans could end up with Sam Darnold as their quarterback. And what's hilarious is, we put out a tweet saying that TD said that there's a real, and the amount of people that are tweeting, they're like, oh no, oh God, oh no, actually makes me happy. Because that Twitter crew is the same Twitter crew that last year, this time was, you'll see, Jared, let Rand cook. You'll see. I trust Rand Carthon over you, Jared. And they kept saying they don't have a right tackle. And these same people kept saying, it's only May, Jared. They'll figure it out. So those same people don't want Sam Darnold, which tells me, it gives me hope that Sam Darnold is actually the right call. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Ian, do you have a thought or do you want to go to the phones?
I'm good with phones.
Dylan in Antioch says, awesome call from Coach Steckel. I was never a big Darnold guy, but his call and explanation makes a lot of sense as to how bad those games went for Sam Darnold. And not only that, now look, I love Coach Steckel. I love Coach Steckel's family. And I think it's funny because he's like, I'm telling my wife about the coverages and stuff. And I'm like, man, his wife, Chris, she knows all the coverages. I already know that. But he's sitting there watching the game with it's great family, great people. But it wasn't like I texted Coach Steckel and said, hey, call in because I want to. Coach Steckel was like, I have got to defend football. It was like I saw what I saw, and he knows the game. And he's like, I got to call in to defend Sam Darnold. And he doesn't know Sam Darnold, but he just knows football. And so out of respect for the game, he calls in saying, this is what was happening. And it's the exact same thing Jordan Palmer was talking about when Jordan Palmer was like, I got a lot of respect for Aikman, but Aikman's got to get it right, because when Aikman starts blaming Darnold for things that are really the scheme and the coaching staff, when that's the case, it turns this narrative into, oh no, Sam Darnold sucks again. And by the way, one texter said, Kevin goes, I guess it was scheme when he overthrew Justin Jefferson by 10 yards in the end zone. Always going to be tougher and more pressure against better teams. Can't always have the perfect call. The quarterback has to have more poise than he did. He was shook up, and you stay calm like Joe Burrow does to make the throws. They could have won the game. Okay. Let me ask you guys a question. Here's how narratives work. And I use Mike Vrabel as the example. Because again, everybody across the country thinks Mike Vrabel farts perfume. You and I both know, having dealt with Vrabel every day. And again, Vrabel was a good coach when he was here. But we know there are warts when it comes to Vrabel. The Aaron Brewer thing, you know that was Mike Vrabel being like, my guy plays hard every play, we can use him. And the guy can't even snap the ball. So here's again, how I believe the narratives work. When it comes to the Vikings and Sam Darnold, what is the popular opinion about Kevin O'Connell? It's that he's a genius. Why? Because when O'Connell got the job, the Vikings went to the playoffs, and Kirk Cousins had a good year. And then the next year, Kirk Cousins got hurt, and the Vikings still won some games with Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs and nobody at quarterback. And then last year, they won 14 games with Sam Darnold. Coach of the year, Kevin O'Connell. Genius, Kevin O'Connell. So by that, because everyone assumes O'Connell's a genius, and I think O'Connell's a great coach, but because everyone assumes he's a genius and everyone's already seen Sam fail, they assume there's no way that could have been O'Connell's fault as to why things didn't work out. So it had to be Darnold's. Let me ask you about the Super Bowl. Is it Patrick Mahomes' fault that Kansas City got boat raced? Ian, does Patrick Mahomes suck because Kansas City got waxed in the Super Bowl?
I don't think Mahomes sucks, no.
Oh, so does Andy Reid suck because his scheme, I guess, wasn't good enough to be able to protect the quarterback?
Suck, no, maybe a bad week, but
again, the narrative is Andy's a great coach. The narrative is Mahomes a great quarterback. So we just say, they just, the Eagles were too much for them and they didn't have a good day and they didn't. But that can't be what happened to Sam Darnold. What happened to Sam Darnold, I mean, he just has to suck now. Because that's the common opinion. That's what people want to believe. One texter says, Jared, if they go with Sam Darnold, this only tells me that this new administration is weak and scary, and they are only concerned about their job, not this team or its future. Okay. How do you make that assumption? So if they sign Sam Darnold to a contract, why does that make you think that they're only worried about their jobs? And why, in the case of Mike Borgonzi, who just got here, why is being worried about doing a good enough job to keep his job mutually exclusive from worrying about trying to build a winning football team? Because I find them to be pretty much concurrent, which is Mike Borgonzi knows he's not getting fired this year, so he can lose games and do what's in the best interest of the team and everything else, and it should all be okay as long as big picture he builds a winner. And that is what you're talking about when you say, they're only worried about their jobs. So I don't understand that. What makes them weak? Like if they're weak, that would be someone that's like, the fans don't want Sam Darnold? We ran a poll at the Super Bowl. 68% of the people who follow me do not want Sam Darnold to be the quarterback of this team. If you were worried about what was popular, if you were scared, then you would have no interest because, everybody doesn't want him. And I do believe that's how this organization has operated far too often over the last 3 years, which is they've listened to the fans. I just think it's good that the fans hate this. Then again, the fans didn't hate the A.J. Brown trade, so they were right on that one. One texter says, we all hear you, but their history is taking a tackle. What will you feel like if they take a tackle? Well, I mean, I'm talking about signing in free agency. If they take a tackle over Abdul Carter, I think I would have a problem with that. If they trade back and they end up taking a tackle, we'll see. What's hilarious is apparently in Boston, Ian, you want to know what they're all watching for next week at the Combine?
Vrabel and his assessment, I guess, of somebody?
Well, it's not Vrabel's assessment, but it is this. They have the 4th pick. Their offensive line is terrible. Their offensive line is worse than the Titans, if that could actually be possible. They have their quarterback. They are not likely to be able to pick Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter with the 4th pick. That is gone. So who are the next best players after that? And it's that group, of Jalen Walker and Tyler Warren and the offensive lineman. And Will Campbell at LSU, the left tackle, has one kind of minor issue. And that is they don't know if his arms are long enough. And if his arms aren't long enough, Ian, what does that mean he has to do?
That means most people would probably project him to move inside as a guard.
Then he'd have to move into guard. And what do we know about the head coach of the New England Patriots when it comes to drafting a tackle whose arms aren't long enough?
He's not afraid of it.
He's going to move him to guard, and he's not even going to try to play him at tackle. He's going to put Dillard out there. He's going to put Ojukwu out there. He's going to put Duncan out there. He's going to put Nicholas T. Frere, a.k.a.
PT.
He's going to put PT out there before he wouldn't even let Peter sniff the tackle position. So if this guy's arms aren't long enough, even though he might be the left tackle they need, Vrabel will not let him play there. So I guess that's what they're following. And I love it. I love it. Lord, Please have Will Campbell's arms measure short at the combine next week. Amen. One text says, hey, Jared, 49ers fan living in Nashville. Completely agree with you about Sam Darnold. He and the Vikings demolished the 49ers in the regular season. And here's the thing. A regular season game isn't much different from a playoff game. The Vikings cannot deny the skill that he has, and he can be a starting NFL quarterback right around Brock Purdy's level. I think there is something to that. 615-737-1025. The ratings for the hockey game last night are out. And I'm not going to say I owe ESPN an apology, but wow. We'll do it next. Someone to Company 1025 game.
Matthews, one of the best in the league. McDavid under 50% for the regular season. But he won 12 out of 14 of their opener, and he won that one and got a shot off. Centering pass, McDavid scores! Connor McDavid wins it for Canada! And Jordan Binnington has done it again inside the TD Garden.
Okay, that was the finale last night. It broke my heart. I think we choked, but hats off to Canada. Hats off to Jordan Binnington. The TV ratings are out. Gary Bettman, you may want to take a seat on this one. 9.3 million viewers for last night's hockey game. According to John Butchergross, that is higher than any NHL game ever. Now, this is about to get complicated because Vingan sent me a tweet from somebody who said it's the highest non-Olympic game on record. But I have something here that tells me that in 1971, Montreal and Chicago, Game 7 drew 12.4 million. And the Rangers and Boston in 72 drew 11 million. And so we'll see. But again, you're talking about going back to 71. We're talking about 50 plus years in order to go back to how far to get that kind of rating. 9.3 American viewers on cable last night for the NHL. And I just want to put into perspective what that number actually means. So if that game, USA Hockey Canada, or USA Canada Hockey on a Thursday night, again on cable TV, and this is why I think ABC completely effed up by not putting the game on ABC and putting it on ESPN. If this game had been on ABC, it probably is in the 10 or 11 million range, which 10 or 11 million puts them up there, with elite college football. But I say this because including the college football playoff games and including the conference championship games, this would have been the 19th most watched college football game this year, behind Ohio State, Oregon, which had 9.6 million viewers on NBC. Now let's take out the playoff games. So you're going to have to give me a second to do all this because, again, the information is brand new. 9.3 million viewers for hockey last night. So of the games that are rated for college, here's how many playoff and conference championship games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11. So if that was, what's 19 minus 11, Ian? 8?
Yep.
That would have been the 8th highest rated regular season college football game. Period. That is a massive number. In fact, I pulled up the conference finals for basketball, because they put the conference finals on cable for basketball. It outdrew the Lakers when they were in the Western Conference Final 2 years ago against the Denver Nuggets. Outdrew every game. The only game over the last 3 years on cable, the only conference final NBA game. And remember, the networks and Amazon and ESPN and NBC just paid about $1 gazillion for basketball. Only Game 7 between the Celtics and the Heat drew a higher rating, and that drew 12 million people. Only that one drew a higher rating on cable than last night's hockey game. So I don't know exactly what to make of those ratings, but here's what I will argue. I mean, again, 9.3 million viewers for the game last night. Game 4 of the NBA Finals on ABC last year had 9.6 million viewers. This has to be a yearly thing. And so next year they'll go to the Olympics. So that will be, the international stuff will be taken care of in the Olympics, and the Olympics draw huge TV ratings. The USA Canada went to overtime, gold medal game in Vancouver, I think drew around 11 million viewers. So that's already spoken for. NBC is already paying a premium for the Olympics, and that will take care of itself. But after that, this needs to be an every year thing. The Four Nations face-off. Do you make it 6 so that we can get Russia in there when they decide to stop fighting in Ukraine? Do we put the Czech Republic in there? Do we do something like that? Like, I think that that's on the table. But this needs to be an every year thing. Now, nothing's going to be as good as the first. So if USA and Canada go to the gold medal game and, whatever, the next year it probably won't be as great. But you can't tell me it'll draw 900,000 people like the NHL All-Star Game probably draws. The NBA All-Star Game drew, I believe, like 4.3 million viewers. Again, the Eastern and Western Conference Final, unless it's Game 7, are not drawing what this USA-Canada game drew last night. So I got to give credit where credit is due. And I've got to say, wow. And I chastised ESPN up and down this week because on Monday, I didn't think they did a good enough job hyping up Canada, USA from Saturday and talking about the game on Thursday. And clearly ESPN got the memo because on Tuesday, PK Subban was in studio and was all over TV. And they were talking about it Wednesday. They were talking about it Thursday. And they got a massive number on Thursday night. And what I think probably happened was, I think they were probably surprised that 4.5 million that they got for Saturday night, they were probably surprised it was so high. And they had probably already booked to have Harry Douglas and Dan Graziano and basketball. They had probably already booked it. And so they weren't prepared to pivot to hockey. And on Monday, everybody was watching this, doing what I did. I came on the show and I went crazy that ESPN's flagship morning show did not talk about the Four Nations face-off until they were 53 minutes into the program. And it's almost like somebody at ESPN said, get hockey on there. And now you got PK Subban all over TV. He was on with Stephen A. earlier today. I don't know what this means for hockey, like the NHL. I don't think you're going to see more people necessarily tune in to an Edmonton Oiler game because, oh my God, did you see? But they got great ratings last year for the Stanley Cup final when it went to Game 7, and they got incredible ratings last night for what was an incredible game. And my favorite part about the Four Nations face-off is that my favorite thing is I really feel like even though there was a trophy, even though they were given medals, it wasn't about the medals or the trophy. Like, yeah, they probably held the trophy and things like that, and they wore their hats afterwards, and they should have gotten hats and shirts. But it wasn't really about that. It was about looking at the other guy and saying, I beat you. And that's what sports is all about. Sports is all about the competition. That's why these guys like Michael Jordan, he's retired and he goes to the golf course and gambles every day. Because it's about the competition. And we've lost that. The NBA has lost the sense of competition. They've lost it. And that's why the players don't care as much anymore. And the players are making their money, and so they'll go out and they'll do it on their own time. But hockey, everything that we saw for the last week and a half was about the love of the game. And that's what's drawing people to the television. There is a movie that came out about 30 years ago. It's called Basketball. Not basketball, not baseball, basketball. It was starring and written and produced, I think, by the creators of South Park. The two guys that created South Park also did Book of Mormon, shockingly. They made this movie Basketball, and the premise of the movie is this. Sports became so commercialized, and people stopped caring about competition, that they invented a game out of nowhere. And it became such an inspiring hit across the country because it was all about the love of the game. And I almost wonder if those two guys that, again, do South Park and are gajillionaires and Book of Mormon and movies and whatever, I wonder if they watched this and thought, oh my God, this is just like that movie that we made, where people in this country were all drawn to the TV, we're all excited about it, we're all in, not because of the trophy, not because of how much money they were making, not because of somebody's records, not because of, the commercial sponsors, but because it was the love of competition for my country versus your country. And this needs to be the gold standard for a yearly event for hockey. Screw the All-Star game. We don't need it. Figure out how you have to get Canada versus the USA, and you will get better ratings than anything you've ever done. This should be hockey's Michigan, Ohio State. This should be hockey's Magic Bird, Brady Manning. That's what it is. And before you say, well, it won't be as good year 3 or 4, how much would you kill for a Brady Manning game right now? A Mahomes Allen AFC title game. They play in the playoffs every year. And guess what? They'll get a massive TV rating when they play again next year. I think this is great. 615-737-10252, your phones. And I've got a little potpourri that we'll get into at some point today. Stillman and Company, Fireball Hot Take Friday, 102.5 The Game.
Hockey deserves major props and major credit. So I'm on a plane flying out west from the East Coast yesterday, okay? And I'm very lucky you had live television on JetBlue, you know? So I'm sitting up there and I get up and you know, got to stretch, can't just be sitting in your seat for 6 hours and all of this other stuff. And I'm going up and down the aisle, just walking, you know, let the blood circulate. And I'm looking, and every single TV had the hockey game on. Every single TV, every one of them. Everybody was watching this. And we all know why. It wasn't just because it was hockey. It was because of the intensity of the moment. You know, and I was joking, but it was apropos for the president to call the team before the game, wishing them luck and stuff like that, trying to implore them to win, obviously. And they played their tails off. I mean, there's no shame in losing in overtime 3-2. We get all of that. But you saw Trudeau for Canada. He came out and clapped back at the United States after they won. You know, you're not taking our country, you ain't taking our sport.
There you go. That was Stephen A. saying, I was flying across the country and every TV on the plane had Team USA versus Canada on it. 9.3 million viewers. You know, Vingen sent me a tweet that said this was the most watched hockey game on, or the most watched, I believe, cable game or something like on record, non-Olympic hockey. That's it. The most watched non-Olympic hockey game on record. And I'm like, wait a minute. Weren't there games in the 70s? And apparently those ratings, the way that they calculated them in the 70s with the 71, 72 game 7 of the finals, apparently that, and this will shock you, was probably not an exact science, which, by the way, I'm not sure that the ratings nowadays are really an exact science, but apparently they're saying, like, do you trust those ratings? So if you do trust those ratings from the 70s that are on record, then it's the highest in 52 years. Unbelievable. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. According to ESPN, the 9.3 million viewers and the peak of 10.4 million viewers. God, if this game had been on ABC. Whew. Ian, am I overrating how much being on network TV as compared to cable matters?
I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. I would think the number would still be bigger on network TV.
So,
but I don't know who has network, but not ESPN. You know, what's the number on that? At this point,
how many people can watch CBS but can't watch ESPN?
Yeah, at this point, given the streaming situation with everybody, and I know the antenna, technically you could still watch it for free, but nowadays it's so fractured. I'm not sure it matters a whole lot anymore. But I mean, all of the top regular or highest rated stuff is usually always on network. I mean, granted, it's the NFL, but still, they're mostly on network.
What's crazy is how the business model has changed, where 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they were moving things to cable because they didn't care as much about the ratings as much as they cared about how many subscribers they were getting. But as people cut the cord on cable, now it's shifted back to broadcast television so that they can say, hey, we have these numbers, we have these many people watching. So we've got that's why you've seen the shift in college football. Conference realignment used to be about network footprint. You know, how many people are we getting by adding Texas A&M to the SEC? So when we put the SEC network in there, we're getting that many cable subscribers. To now, hey, we want USC and UCLA because they give us more viewers for a Fox Saturday game than, say, Rutgers. But I guess the reason I bring this up is, again, according to ESPN, the 9.3 million viewers, the peak of 10.4 million, the most viewed event on ESPN platform since the 2024 NBA Finals, excluding the NFL and college football, the most viewed non-NFL event ever on ESPN Plus, and the Four Nations Face-Off 4 games on ESPN platforms average 4.3 million viewers, which is better than the 2016 World Cup of Hockey on ESPN, which I don't even remember what that was. I'm not sure that's really much of anything. All right, to your phones as promised. 615-737-1025. Wayne in Hopkinsville says, Jared, have you just discovered the magic and appeal of the Ryder Cup? Wayne, let me tell you something. I respect the Ryder Cup. I was in Louisville when the Ryder Cup was at Valhalla, I don't give two poops about the Ryder Cup. I love America. Don't give two poops. And I don't hear, again, Stephen A. Smith said every single TV on the plane he was on was watching hockey last night. Again, hockey, there are certain events in sports. And an NFL game is like this. Almost every big broadcast window for the NFL is like this. And then, like a big college basketball game, like an Elite Eight, a Final Four, something like that, where I feel like just via social media, everybody is watching. That's how I felt last night with the hockey. I've never felt that way. No disrespect. I've never felt that way when it comes to the Ryder Cup. One texter says, I know we don't have a basketball team here in Nashville, and I don't follow Memphis, but I grew up in Orlando and used to follow the Magic casually. With that said, I don't follow the NBA until the playoffs, and it has to be something really interesting for me to decide to watch it. But I would watch pretty much any hockey matchup and definitely enjoyed the Four Nations tournament better than a traditional all-star game. So here's the deal. Here's the big question I have. How is this going to affect the NHL? Like, is this actually going to be something where TNT is going to see a spike during the playoffs when they have the New Jersey Devils and the Washington Capitals in an Eastern Conference final? Ian, is that a realistic Eastern Conference final matchup this year?
I don't know about the Devils, but the Capitals are playing well. But sure.
Okay. Sure. Throw them in there.
Yeah.
Like, will that make a difference? And my gut tells me no, but I'm not sure. The one thing that I think it does do is it gets people to know the players better. Like, that is really important. That, again, hockey has had, in the last year, 2 massive nights on television. Game 7 of the Cup final, which drew 7.5 million viewers, and last night, which drew 9.3. And in both cases, the star of the game was Connor McDavid. And that's how you get people to know about how freaking good this guy is. And that's how you get them to watch. Plus, again, the passion of the game was just so electric last night. Chad Withrow joins us from Outkick next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios on a Fireball Hot Take Friday, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. The numbers are out as far as hockey is concerned. ESPN drew 9.3 million viewers for the Canada-USA final for the Four Nations Face-Off, better than any NHL game ever if we're not counting the 70s. Better than any NHL game ever, which beat out NBC's 8.9 million for Game 7 of Bruins Blues in 2019. And it was still not up to the level of the Vancouver 2010 Olympics, which apparently did 27.6 million viewers on NBC. So you're still far away from the gold medal game, but incredible. David Purdom, who covers gambling for ESPN, reports that ESPN Bet says the Four Nations final between the U.S. and Canada drew similar betting interest to a Sunday afternoon NFL game, which is remarkable when comparing the general scale of hockey and football betting. Chad Withrow joins us now on the program from Outkick, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. So, Chad, let's start there. Your reaction to the big numbers for hockey and your reaction to this, basically what feels like makeshift idea in which, again, nobody really cared about the trophy or a medal or anything like that. It was about the country pride. Your reaction to what we saw in the Four Nations face-off.
Well, first off, I'm shocked, Jared. They went from, I think, 4.5 million or 4.4 million on Saturday night to almost 10 million on a Thursday. I get that Thursday's a much better TV crowd and all of that, but not being on ABC, being on ESPN, that was a huge jump. My buddy Jacob Underwood said he thought they'd get 10 million American viewers. I thought he's crazy. I said maybe in Canada they'll get that, but not in the U.S. And they almost got it. They were 700,000 away from it. So the numbers itself really jumped out to me, and I was surprised by them. I do think that, look, to say that you just created something out of thin air and it became this it's accurate with the NHL. So kudos to the NHL for doing it. There are a number of factors at play here, though, right? Well, what if that's Sweden and Finland in the final? What if it's America and Sweden, right? It's USA, Canada, and I think they can thank Donald Trump for a lot of the ratings. I mean, he created a division between Americans and Canadians, and love Donald Trump or hate him, the guy gets eyeballs and he gets ratings and he drives ratings. So I think all the talk about tariffs and becoming a 51st state and all of those things, and Governor Trudeau, I think that added to the spectacle. It added to the patriotic essence of this event, and it added to the atmosphere last night in Boston for the game. So, look, I think you add all that thing into the stew, and what you get is a historic event with historic ratings, and that's what we saw. I was glued to the television. I loved it. I love how hard the guys went after each other. I don't know that the hockey's the best because they're kind of thrown together and don't really have practice time. But in terms of effort and the skill that's on the ice, it was unmatched. So kudos to the NHL. Huge W for them.
Do you think this means anything for hockey? You know, because I remember last year when Florida blew that 3-0 lead and it went to Game 7, and they got a big number there. I think 7.5 million viewers is what they got for Game 7. And I remember thinking, you know, this is the opportunity to kind of showcase McDavid as the real star of the league. So within the last year, hockey has had 2 mega nights where they've drawn really good ratings. Does this mean anything for hockey as a whole across America, or is this a one-off in your opinion?
I think it's more of a one-off for the hockey part of it. I don't think people are going to flock to the NHL that weren't flocking to it before. I think it's huge for personal brands. I think it's huge for Connor McDavid with the game-winning goal. I think it's huge for the Tkachuk brothers. I mean, the Tkachuk family was such a central character in all of this. I think their brands are exponentially better than it was going into this tournament. But in terms of, will it draw a bunch of people that previously weren't caring or watching the NHL to suddenly start paying attention more? I mean, it's going to have a positive effect, but I think it's going to be pretty minimal. You know, it's not like numbers are going to go down. It's going to help, but I don't think it's going to help that much. Now, does it help the next time the U.S. and Canada get together in Milan in the Olympics? Yeah, it's going to help that rivalry and that sense of national pride a lot. But I don't know that people are suddenly going to start flocking to the NHL. But I do think, Jared, we'll see an uptick in playoff ratings. when it comes around. I don't know how big, but I do think it's going to be better.
Well, you brought up the personal brand thing, and I was thinking about the Kachuk brothers. It kind of feels like the Kachuk brothers are probably going to represent now, like the American hockey fan, and like, that's our guy, right there with especially Matthew Kachuk because he's on a good team. And I do wonder, not that he would have Caitlin Clark's effect, but I do wonder, the Florida Panthers have made it to the final the last couple of years, and he's the best player on that team. I do wonder if that draws somebody in Topeka, Kansas to watching a Florida Panther game because of the personal brand of Matthew Kachuk. Do you see any of that?
Yes, I do think there's going to be some of that. I'll say those guys are my favorite hockey players right now after this tournament, right? Like that's the type of effect it has. So yeah, I think you're going to see that's what the NBA has over the NHL. And the NBA right now is an infinitely worse product than the NHL, but they got star power. They got players that kids follow, and they don't really care about the team as much, but they know the individual brands, and they're going to follow the players and watch their games and wear their jersey and all of that. This is the type of event that generates so much national pride and interest that you suddenly get interested in a Matthew Kachuk because of what he did for Team USA. You might get interested in Connor Hellebuck, and you might want to watch, more of him in net, and you suddenly start watching more NHL games for that reason. I think there is going to be a positive effect with that and with those guys. Their agents need to be on the phone with everyone right now, making sure they're capitalizing on all this because it was a huge hit for their brand with everything that happened. And this whole Bash Brothers thing and the fighting, to start the other game, it's perfect. It's perfect for the hockey fan in America. It's perfect for the patriotic American. It all goes hand in hand. And watching that interview that ESPN did last night with the family, I loved them. I was blown away by the family all together, eating pizza, drinking beer, talking with ESPN. I thought it was terrific.
Chad, do you think that we have a little brother problem when it comes to us in Canada? And I mean, not in the sense that we're Canada's little brother, because we're not, but in hockey, I kind of feel like we are. I feel like we choked last night. I feel like we're the Red Sox. They're the Yankees. I feel like we're Louisville. They're Kentucky. I feel like we're Auburn. They're Alabama. That's how I feel about the USA-Canada rivalry right now. I feel like we're little brother. We're Vanderbilt, they're Tennessee. Do you feel that way after watching last night? And throw the 2010 Vancouver game in there because that was an all-time classic, and it was basically the exact same game.
I did love the jokes about Austin Matthews. You can't trust the Toronto Maple Leafs in the clutch, blowing some opportunities
choke
late.
Job.
Total choke job for the U.S., but also the tie-in to he plays for Toronto, and given their history also. Look, I think that it's funny that they haven't won a Stanley Cup in so long with a Canadian team. But, I mean, yeah, right? Like, that's Canada's sport. That's what they have over the U.S., that and maple syrup. I mean, that's it. So, yeah, to say that is accurate. Like, the U.S. is their little brother. That's what made it so fun to beat them on Canadian soil and to have such a good game against them in the follow-up. Now, are Americans going to be okay with continuing to lose in close games to Canada? No, because it looks like the U.S. is their equal when you watch them on the ice head-to-head. So there's going to be more national pride taken by the Americans to win in hockey. But, I mean, I said this when Jamaica beat the U.S. in soccer one year. The United States of America should not lose to Jamaica in anything but track or smoking weed. That's it. Those are the only two areas that it's acceptable to lose to Jamaica in. So when they lost in soccer, it was a huge deal. I think Canada kind of feels the same way about hockey. Don't lose to the U.S. This is our sport. You're going to lose in literally everything else. Maybe curling, they're better than America. But everything else, the Americans have Canadians in. So this is their one vestige of dominance over the U.S. So I think it's more pressure on them than the United States.
If Gary Bettman called you and said, Chad, what do I do with the four nations going forward? What would you tell him?
Do it every year and include Russia in it. I don't know that we needed Sweden and Finland, quite frankly. I think Russia is a bigger draw. I understand some of the issues there. But, I mean, if you really want to make a villain out of it, I think a Russian team would be outstanding in it. But I think it's also just this needs to be an annual thing. Like, this needs to be a shutdown of the league, and let's go for a huge ratings grab and get people really invested in playing for their country each and every year. That's how I make it. Here's the other thing. If I'm the NBA, Jared, this is where I'm going now. Screw the NBA All-Star Weekend. It's done. No one cares. There's no salvaging what that has become and what that event has become. So let's take the best American players and All-Stars and go America versus the world in a best 2 out of 3 series. Shut the league down for a week, play in 3 different cities or 2 different cities, start in Toronto, and then come to the U.S., however you want to do it. But I think there's a blueprint here that if you could actually get some buy-in for NBA players to play hard, which is very difficult to do, granted, but if that happened, just like all of these American basketball players were so much more likable in the Olympics when they're playing for their country and playing hard and giving and being unselfish and giving it their all for their country to win a gold medal, I think you generate that, and it's so much positive momentum for a league that needs it badly. That would be the right move for Adam Silver in the NBA right now also, is to model what hockey has done and take it to basketball. To me, it's a no-brainer.
How embarrassed? So my follow-up to the Gary Bettman question was going to be if Adam Silver called you. How embarrassed do you think Adam Silver is watching what has transpired over the last week and a half between his All-Star weekend and hockey's Four Nations face-off?
I think it's time for Adam Silver to get angry and be a little bit mean. I don't know that he has that. You know, David Stern, his old boss, had that in him, right? He was a strong commissioner that could get angry and get mean with people. You know, you get a fight in the Malice in the Palace and the league looks bad and the reputation of the league is bad. Well, we're going to enact a dress code, whether you like it or not. Here's what we're going to do. You know, here's how we're going to respond to that, because I'm tired of seeing this. And even if people think that's part of the reason, then we're going to clean it up and we're going to have a dress code. And people didn't like it, but he didn't care. He was willing to do things to make himself the bad guy to do it. If I'm Adam Silver, regardless if it's true, I don't need Draymond Green going on going on TNT and talking about how the league is boring and how the players are boring and how the style of play is boring and no one competes hard and there's no strategy and this and that. I don't need any of that. Like, they need a commissioner with some backbone. To answer your question, Jared, I'd be so embarrassed if I were him watching how the hockey just dominated the NBA with all the talk, all the discussion, and what they were able to pull off. He needs to get embarrassed. He needs to get mad about it. He needs to say some things to his broadcast partners. Needs to say some things to his players about how things are going to be done moving forward. I thought PK Subban's rant was terrific on First Take about, I mean, why do we get into this? Do you love sports or not? Do you love to compete? And talking about, I want to get your 10 best years. I don't care about you playing into your 40 or into your 40s. Like, let's stop with the load management. You got to give it your all for your teammates, for the fans that pay the money, for all of that. I loved his rant on it. The NBA needs to hear it, and Adam Silver needs to enact it. And that's the problem, I think, with him, is his reluctance to be the bad guy to his players and say mean things about his players. He needs to start doing that. He needs to be their boss.
I think that was very well said. Chad Withrow with us. The hot seat awaits next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, Chad Withrow with us from Outkick, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Chad, this week, well, do you have a thought or do you want to go to the hot seat?
You know me. Let's go to the hot seat.
Earlier this week, Ian, if you could, Teron Davenport was on our program, and I asked him point blank who he thought the next quarterback of the Titans should be and who he thought it would be. Now, he thinks it should be Shedeur Sanders, which he explains, but this is what he thinks also will happen. Ian, please play the cut. Who do you think the Titans quarterback, 1, should be, and 2, who do you think it will be?
I think it should be Shedeur Sanders, but I think, the more and more I look into this, there's a real chance Sam Darnold ends up here. There's a real chance. Make of it what you want. I know, you're over there getting a little excited, but I think there's a chance. And I mean, if you look at it, I understand if they did it, but it's a very risky move if they were. So Shedeur Sanders, Sam Darnold.
Okay, TD would say that he is hearing that the Titans have interest in Darnold. So my question for you is, what do you make of that? And is that good or bad for the Titans?
First off, if Sam Darnold is the Titans quarterback and he doesn't get a weekly spot on your show, given your love of Sam Darnold, it's a crime. That should absolutely happen. I'm good with it. Like the more I talk to people, the more I keep hearing is, and take this with a grain of salt, it's the Titans are really interested in a veteran quarterback. I haven't heard Sam Darnold. I haven't heard anyone specifically. There's talk about Matthew Stafford, about Derek Carr, about what a trade would cost for those guys, all those different things. But I am hearing more and more about veteran quarterback trading back in the first round out of number 1, letting someone come up and draft Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. And then you could possibly also, let's say hypothetically you give him a second round pick, right, to go get Matthew Stafford or Derek Carr or whoever. Then you could use that also you could still get a lot in return for the first pick, depending on how far you go back. So, this is all about the Titans drafting appropriately. But if they were able to parlay that first overall pick for a number of top 100 picks and still get a dynamic impact player whenever they draft in the first round and know they're going to get that guy on offense or defense, I'm all for it. And then go get your veteran option that's going to improve your team right away. Darnold would. Darnold improves this team right away, way better than Will Levis, not even close. Go get that guy, improve your team in the meantime, become competitive, and start to build through the draft with all those top 100 picks that you're going to acquire by doing these things. I'm all for that move, and I'd be great with Sam Darnold if he was that option.
Number 2, TD says 3 people in the Titans building like Abdul Carter if the Titans were to use the first overall pick. To that, what do you make of Abdul Carter at number 1, and are you okay if that's the route the Titans go?
I hate it. I hate it. And it's not because I hate Abdul Carter. I think he's going to be a great player. I don't think he's going to be Myles Garrett, but I think he's going to be a really good NFL player. But I hate it because, to me, it's very simple. Either you love Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, or you're trading out of that pick. That's it. Someone's going to trade up to get a quarterback. Someone will do it. So try to fleece the team that trades up that desperately wants one of these 2 quarterbacks. If, in fact, you don't want the quarterback, do not draft any other position in that spot. Find a trade partner. I truly believe in this instance, Jared, if you draft Abdul Carter, you didn't do your job. Because while I think he's going to be a good player, you're not staying at number 1 to not draft a quarterback. You've got to find a trade partner. Someone's going to be willing to do it. The Giants, someone is going to trade up to get one of those quarterbacks. Make it happen.
Number 3, what do you make of the divorce between Major League Baseball and ESPN?
I think it could be a good thing for both. I do think that ESPN's making an actually sound fiscal decision. Because nationally televised games, Major League Baseball, they don't matter. No one cares. It is a local, regionalized sport. You and I are Braves fans. What are we watching? Braves games. Sure. I'm not sitting around watching an ESPN Sunday night baseball game. I'm not watching the Fox Saturday afternoon game. I'm watching the Braves when I get a chance to watch the Braves. And that's every baseball fan in America, for the most part. They're going to watch their team locally on the regional sports network or wherever they watch their team play. And that's it. So for Major League Baseball, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. A national program for Major League Baseball is not worth what ESPN was paying. So they wanted to go down in what they were paying. MLB said thanks, but no thanks. And maybe MLB can find Apple TV Plus, who they partnered with before, or someone else, or take it in-house with some sort of direct-to-consumer streamer for Major League Baseball. Maybe that's their option now in making this thing better. But I really do think that it's a good, fresh start for both. I don't think ESPN was that interested in promoting Major League Baseball across all their shows throughout the day and SportsCenter and all of that. And MLB said that in their statement. Rob Manfred did. So they understood it. And I think it's a good fresh start for MLB to go find someone either who's more interested in their national product or to get creative on how they're going to advance and develop what they're doing moving forward.
Well, my thing is, here's what I don't understand. And I understand that they're getting the playoffs when it comes to basketball, and they don't have the playoffs outside of the wild card round with baseball. But they're paying basketball $1 gazillion.
Makes no sense.
Baseball rates the same as basketball. Like baseball rates, the World Series outrated the NBA Finals last year. Baseball rates the same. The NBA does not get big ratings for regular season national games, just like baseball doesn't get big ratings for regular season national games. And yet they don't want to pay it all for baseball. Like, why not pay less for the NBA, which is, I think, declining in popularity rapidly, and keep baseball so you, ESPN, can say, we have football, we have basketball, we have baseball, we have hockey.
Yeah, I think the NBA is regional to a certain extent too, but I do think that MLB is way more regionalized than nationalized when it comes to the sporting public as a sport. Now, the ratings being similar, you bring up a good point, and this is a separate issue. I think that the NBA is fleecing these media companies.
Agreed.
Amazon, NBC, Universal, ESPN. I don't get it. And we go back and forth on it. Me and Jonathan Hunt go back and forth. Hunt's like, hey, NBA can't be that bad because look at what all these media partners are paying. Yeah, he's right. It's a gigantic deal. I don't understand it. It is in decline. The ratings are in decline. The public perception is in decline. It's like there's some sort of secret in cahoots deal to subsidize the league by these media companies. I do not understand how it's worth it to them. I think they're paying way too much. I think they're going to pay big time for paying as much as they are. The ratings are not going to get better. I like the idea of the NBA going back to NBC. Not going to make a big difference in their overall ratings. I don't get it. I really don't. The baseball thing I get. Like, I do think if you're ESPN, you've paid so much for so many years, it's like, okay, here's something we'll cut to go get more college football or NFL or whatever they decide to go buy with what they're not paying now for Major League Baseball. I can understand it fiscally. I do not understand any part of the NBA media deal at all. Don't know how it makes any sense for those media companies. Makes a lot of sense for the NBA. None for the media companies.
The Diamond Sports, which is FanDuel Sports, and Amazon Prime Video have announced a partnership in which fans can subscribe to the channels that we all used to get with our cable packages for $19.99 a month per channel. Now, there is a season package you can buy. There is a yearly discounted package you can buy, but let's stick with the $19.99 per month. For instance, if you get, I believe, FanDuel Sports South, you get the Predators and the Braves at $19.99 a month. $19.99 a month on Amazon Prime Video, fair or foul, Chad Withrow?
Foul for the entire year. Fair if you're just watching 4 months of your team is how I describe it. Here's what I mean by that. I don't know what the full season is for it if they have a different option, but I'm going to pay the Braves fee. I've got YouTube TV. I'm not going to get the Braves games on YouTube TV. So come baseball season, I do have Prime Video, and I have a subscription, and I'm an Amazon Prime member and all that. I'm going to pay the bonus money to watch the Braves. I will. I'll do it for the season. Now, do I want to do that year-round? No. I want to pay one fee. Here's what I want more of in entertainment and content. Tell me what I need to pay to get every game I want to watch of my team and make it easy for me to watch those games. That's it. That's all I want. I don't want monthly. I don't want anything else. If you don't even want to give me a discount, Jared, if you want to say, hey, baseball season 6 months, so it's going to be $120 total or $150 total for the season, whatever. Fine, I'll pay it. Flat rate, down, right there, done. Now I want to easily be able to access and see my team play. That's all that fans want. And I want that option everywhere I go. I don't want monthly. Tell me what I owe. I'll pay it right now like a pay-per-view event, and I'm going to watch the Braves all season. And I hope they make it that easy.
I believe there is a season pass you can buy, and I think it's cheaper than if you were to buy 6 months at $19.99 a month, albeit not much, but I do think that does exist.
Well, do the same for the Preds, too. Like, do the same for if you've got the NHL for the regional sports, Diamond Sports, the package. Like, do it for every team. I want to go in, find my team's logo, and say, I want every game that's on this network for this team. If it's on national and it's preempted, all that, whatever, fine. I'll go find it on YouTube TV. I just want to click on an icon. I want to find the Braves logo. I want to find the Tomahawk. I want to click on it, and I want to pay the money it takes to watch them from April until October. And just one time pay it and be done with it. We have to make things simpler in terms of how to find things and how to just pay money and be done with it. And I'm hoping we're getting to that point.
Chad Withrow with us on the hot seat. The next one, Tennessee today got the news that Nebraska would be opting out of the 2026 and 2027 home and homes. Do you think that it is right for Nebraska to do so?
I mean, it's kind of like a morality question. What's right in competition and sport? I don't know that anything is ultimately right. Nebraska did what they needed to do. They're taking a hit because their seating capacity is going down. They wanted an extra home game in that year where they're going to have to go to Knoxville. Matt Rule probably didn't want to go get whipped by Tennessee, considering where the programs are right now. I don't know where they're going to be in 2 years. Doesn't mean that Nebraska won't be better 2 years from now than Tennessee, but I think they did what they needed to do, and they had a very small buyout because that contract was originally signed in 2006. And I love Danny White coming back and saying, it's ridiculous. We're upset about it. And if I was AD in 2015 when it was amended, I would have demanded a higher buyout to reflect the time 10 years later. So it wouldn't have been as easy for Nebraska to buy out of the game. So, I mean, is it right? I don't know. Don't really care. It's competition. It's college sports. Does it suck for Tennessee now having to find an opponent? Yeah. Is it good for Nebraska because they didn't have to pay much to Tennessee and they could get out of it? Yeah. So I think, Nebraska gets what they want, and now Tennessee's left searching for an opponent those 2 years.
Chad Withrow from Outkick is presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, as always, on our program. Chad, great stuff. We'll talk soon.
All right, Jared, always fun. Have a good weekend.
Yep, Chad Withrow on the show. Coming up next, I think it was great for the story and the drama of the Four Nations face-off. I think it was bad for America as far as winning and losing. I'll explain. We'll go to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
Well, I just hope Canada's proud, because every player in that room is proud to be a Canadian. And yeah, did we need a win? Not only like our team, but Canada needed a win. And the players bared that on their shoulders, and they took it seriously. And this one was different. This wasn't a win for themselves. This was a win for 40 plus million people. And the guys knew it, and they delivered.
There you go. That was John Cooper, the head coach of Team Canada. And you heard right there talking about like, hey, we're proud to be Canadians, and we knew we wanted to win this game for Canada. And he kind of said it without saying it. So last night, adding to the theater of the rivalry, and I'm not Bill O'Reilly and I'm not Bill Maher, so I'm not trying to get political here, but the political tension between Canada and the United States, and the anthem booing, and the president versus the prime minister, and the 51st state, and the trash talking, and all of that, it made for great theater last night, because the tension, there was like an underlying feeling of that political discourse. Nobody on ESPN wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And again, nobody with Team Canada, nobody with Team USA, nobody would come out and just say it. Like, nobody's going to say that the Kachuk brothers are now like, you know, kind of the wrestling guys, it feels like, for the NHL as far as American fans are concerned. But that's what they've become. And nobody's going to come out and say it and say that Canada was basically looking to say 51st state up yours with their performance. And nobody's going to come out and say directly, you know, that, hey, the reason that we dropped the gloves to fight right at the beginning of the game the other night was because they booed our anthem. But that's exactly what happened. They tread lightly on this stuff because nobody wants to end up on Fox News, and I get it. But Brad Marchand told you after the game last night that this great theater, again, like if you are an American through and through and you hate Canada and you think they should be the 51st state and you think they're our little brother and you think all these negative things about Canada, whatever. You were rooting like hell for Canada to lose yesterday. And if you're Canadian and you're tired of being treated like a little brother, you were rooting like hell for your team to kind of keep the one thing that they have, your country, to keep that. And yet, it motivated Canada to win. Like, it hurt the United States yesterday. Again, that little political undertone for the two games against Canada, the booing the anthem, the commentary, everything. It did add. Chad Withrow talked about Donald Trump picking on Canada probably fueled some of the ratings, and it probably did. And again, that's good for theater. It's good for drama. It's good for, you know, getting people to be mad or whatever. But it didn't help you win last night. And Brad Marchand said it after the game. That stuff, they took it personally. Here's what Brad Marchand said.
This need to win as a Canadian, especially 51st state and some of the other, you know, the checks. Does that mean anything additional?
No, I mean, one thing, I never think, I don't ever think that politics should be in sports. I don't think that's what sports is about. The Chuck brothers, I mean, they play their team, they do what they do. Sometimes when you shoot your mouth off in the media, I mean, it bites you. You know, you can do that during the season, but when you're playing best on best, it's different, you know, and they got a little bit ahead of themselves, but they're great players, and there's not many guys in the league that play the way they do, and they're extremely effective. But, you know, when you start giving teams ammo, it can work against you as well.
I mean, Marchand's telling you, like, yeah, hey, man, I don't want there to be politics in this, but you start giving us ammo, we're going to use it. And I talked about this yesterday. And this was one of my big fears going into last night's game, which was to Canada, this is all they have. They don't have anything on us. Our dollar is better than their dollar. Our stock market is better than their stock market. We did find out that they actually have more land and more space, but our population absolutely dwarfs their population. Our military dwarfs their military. We're better at every other meaningful sport. We're better at basketball. We're better at baseball, and they don't even have football. And the football they do have is kind of screwy anyways. They have hockey. And so, again, that political tension, and I agree completely with Brad Marchand, which is, hey, I really don't want to sit here on the radio and talk about, did you see what the President of the United States said today? And did you see what the Prime Minister of Canada said today? I really don't want to do that. Because I like talking about sports and I like the competition and all of that. But I kept saying, I said, do not boo that anthem. Because if you boo that anthem, you're giving them, you're motivating Canada. And I don't want to give them any extra firepower. And the Kachuk brothers, who couldn't help themselves but talk that talk, as Brad Marchand said, they gave them ammo. So it wasn't like it was really addressed. But John Cooper's comments about Canada needing this, and Brad Marchand's comments completely alluded to it. And to me, it was obvious to anyone watching. Both sides could feel it, even at the beginning of the anthems. Both renditions, which were horrible. The Canadian anthem, I don't even know who they got to sing it, but it was a train wreck. But it absolutely added to the drama of the game. So if you're an executive at ESPN, you love it. But if you're an American like me and you just wanted to win, you hate it. You don't give them anything. I remember Von Miller went on one of the late shows, like maybe Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel, or he went on one of them. And he's like, you don't trash talk Tom Brady. Reggie Miller said that he went and trash talked Michael Jordan his rookie year in an exhibition game. And Jordan took it up a notch and lit up Reggie and walked away and said, don't you ever talk to Black Jesus like that. They're just certain people you just don't. You do not rock the boat. You do not poke the bear. And we did that. And the political kind of talk associated with Canada and the United States, which who's right, who's wrong, that's for a different show, not this one. But it definitely hurts you on the ice. And for me, the biggest thing I cared about was winning the game. 615-737-1025. Hit a little potpourri on our way out. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Fireball. Whoops. I love Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. There is no better way to ignite the night than to do so with ice-cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. The weekend is here. And so if you're starting your weekend off the right way, you're doing it with Fireball. Again, ignite the night. Please do responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey.
Hockey deserves major, major props and major credit. So I'm on a plane flying out west from the East Coast yesterday, okay? And I'm very, very lucky you had live television on JetBlue, you know? So I'm sitting up there and I get up and you know, got to stretch. Can't just be sitting in your seat for 6 hours and all of this other stuff. And I'm going up and down the aisle, just walking, you know, let the blood circulate. And I'm looking, and every single TV had the hockey game on. Every single TV, every one of them. Everybody was watching this. And we all know why. It wasn't just because it was hockey. It was because of the intensity of the moment. You know, and I was joking, but it was apropos for the president to call the team before the game, wishing them luck and stuff like that, trying to implore them to win, obviously. And they played their tails off. I mean, there's no shame in losing in overtime 3-2. We get all of that. But you saw Trudeau for Canada. He came out and clapped back at the United States after they won. You know, you're not taking our country, you ain't taking our sport.
There you go. That was Stephen A. I just want to say congratulations to hockey, to Canada, to America, even though they lost, to the NHL, to Bettman, to the sport. 9.3 million viewers. Unbelievable. Stephen A. says it was on every TV on the plane. So yesterday, my heart sunk a little bit when I saw that Major League Baseball and ESPN were headed for divorce. So can I talk about this for a second? Granted, I don't think this is the most important topic in Nashville, Tennessee, but I just like to touch on it here. As a kid, I absolutely loved baseball tonight. And routinely, I would watch Sunday Night Baseball. Now, as an adult, I have no use for Sunday Night Baseball anymore. The announcers suck. The days of John Miller and Joe Morgan are gone. And yet at the same time, ESPN and Major League Baseball is still somewhat heartbreaking to me as a fan. But here's what I really can't get over. You know, Chad said he thinks this is a good deal for both ESPN and Major League Baseball to move on and whatever. ESPN is so in on the NBA. If ESPN were willing to pay close to NBA prices for baseball, and not just the regular season, but get the real postseason, Major League Baseball would love that. But they won't. Is basketball that much important? More important? They don't get better ratings. So someone explain that to me. And Rob Manfred takes umbrage with the fact that ESPN has kind of kicked baseball off to the side as far as their studio shows are concerned, and Baseball Tonight is not on anymore, and that's fair. But has he watched Colin Cowherd? Fox has the games. The network that Colin Cowherd is on, Fox Sports 1, has a league championship series games. And guess what Cowherd talks every single day? Basketball. FS1 is ESPN 2.0 when it comes to that stuff. Basketball, basketball, basketball. I understand the idea of talking football all day, and I think Manfred probably does too. But basketball? Number two, I see that Tennessee got dumped for a home and home in Nebraska in 26 and 27, and now they're struggling. They're going to try to find some teams to play because they want to do a home and home. They got to have a Power 5 opponent. Here's my advice to Tennessee. Take that home game of a home and home, and this will make it more attractive to somebody else. Make it a neutral site game, technically, at the new Nissan Stadium to open the stadium in 2027. My dream matchup would be Tennessee and Notre Dame at the new stadium to open it up. Maybe Tennessee calls up, goes to South Bend next year in 26, and then Notre Dame opens the season at the new Nissan Stadium. And since Nissan is a huge supporter of college football with the Heisman House, I believe ESPN and Nissan would kick in the money to make it worth Tennessee's while. Tennessee is a big TV brand. And again, when you open a new stadium, you want to do so with a bang. The Titans will get a nationally televised game when they open their new stadium, and it'll be against a good opponent like the Buffalo Bills. But the first official game in there needs to be a college game. The Mercedes-Benz Dome opened with Nick Saban in Alabama versus Florida State. Tennessee should take that 2027 home game and should put it at the new Nissan Stadium. And Nissan and ESPN should pay for it. And finally, I see a lot of talk about Tyler Shuck, the Louisville quarterback, as a potential late first, early second round pick of the draft. Let me just say this. I don't see it. I haven't watched his tape, but I don't think I need to because I watched every game he played. I think he's a good backup quarterback in the NFL. When you take a guy in the second round, he has to be your starter. I wouldn't do it. Third round, maybe. Fourth round, sure. First round, second round. I just think that's draft talk, draft hype. He's a backup. That's it for us. We are out of here. ESPN Radio follows us next. And then Michigan and Michigan State will come on at 6:45. So be listening for that. Stillman and Company. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you all Monday at 2.